Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and we have a special show for you tonight as Whistling Mike is going to be joining us. He is a UFO/UAP whistleblower. He's been in the SCIFs, and he's going to tell his story tonight to all of you. But first, before we bring Mike in, let us say hello to each and every one of you right now. We have Kitty Cattywhack in the gold medal position, Chris in the silver, and Race Fan taking home a bronze medal tonight. Benno, my man, how you doing? Frankie B, nice to see you. Paula Fost and Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, good to have you both here. Luscious Jules, thank you for joining us. High Necessary Dialogue. And Trucker Andrew, nice to have you here. High Necessary Dialogue. And who else is here? Well, it's Whistling Mike. He'll be our guest too, but he's in the chat room as well. How does he do it? Maggie Shepard is here. It's been a while. Thank you, Maggie. Maggie will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Mama Catherine, mwah, I love you, my dear. I hope you're having a great night, and I know you're going to enjoy tonight's show. Make sure Charlie listens to this one, if you don't mind. I think he'd like this one, too. Scrolling on down, we have Music Maker. How are you tonight? And Aussie Boss Tiger. John Lamb, how you doing, my friend? Nice to see you. As we scroll on down on our roll call here, and next we will say hello to Operation Shutdown. And Redneck, how you doing? Good to see you. Man, my tinnitus is terrible today. Thunderhead, thanks for coming on in. And Rat Sass is here. Rat Sass will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Stargazer, what's up, my man? And, of course, number 75 in your program. Starting in goal tonight from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. There he is. Road Flare, nice to see you. Let's scroll on down and say hello next to Skip to My Lou. Good morning to you. Bobbert, nice to see you. And who else do we have here? Well, let's take a look. J Truth. Algaray over on Twitch, working out in an undisclosed location with an undisclosed amount of weight on an undisclosed bench press with an undisclosed amount of times. He is jacked for tonight. Jacked. Good job, Algaray. Way to keep it a secret. East Coast Turnaround on X. Nice to see you. Integrationing. Nice to have you here. Panda on Fire. Thank you for coming on in. I'm Hardcore over on X. And thank you for coming on in. Kawhi, how are you? K17 Odd, what's happening, my man? As we scroll on down and say hello to Walter Kochabinski. And Jennifer Beveridge, how are you, neighbor? Nice to see you. Carol Amario, thanks for joining us. As we scroll on down on our roll call to say hello next to Jerence Carter. Don't call him Jerry. He goes by his full name, Jerence. Jerence Carter. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. Bombshell Bomber, it is always a pleasure to have you here. Made a new friend online who saw the electric blue light you did and invited them here. Oh, thank you, Bomber. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Moving on down, we have, let's see here. We've said all that. Mel WD-40 is here, lubing us up for tonight's show because Whistling Mike says he's not coming in to tell his stories unless Mel lubes him up. So Mel is lubing up Whistling Mike as we speak. Good job, Mel. Don't forget to give yourself a little bit of a shot as well. Candace Helfrich, how you doing, my beautiful friend? Nice to see you. Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and we're going to have whistleblower Whistling Mike on the show tonight to talk about what it's like to go through the process of the whistleblower protection. Yeah, does it actually exist? We're going to find out here momentarily. We are in roll call on our YouTube side, so stick with us. And up next on our list, we have Uriel Perez, welcome. How are you? And Paramarv, nice to see you, my buddy. And Bounty Hunting, how you doing? Nice to have you here. Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Grab your SOR swag on our store and horns up, everybody. Let's rock.
Are you ready to hear your mystic voice of the night?
It's time to wake up.
He's here. Shush. Be quiet. He's ready for you to listen. Let's point our ears towards the little cabin in the woods, where together, my friends, we own the night. It's time for Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott.
From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by CaribouCon. Go to CaribouCon.com. Get your tickets for September 18th through 20th for British Columbia's only paranormal conference. We have an amazing show for you tonight. A lot of insight on what it's like to be a whistleblower. Whistling Mike will be here momentarily. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will join us for another spooky story. Then we will get right into Grant Baker, the UFO report. And if Whistling Mike wants to stick around, he may do that too. We're going to leave that up to him. So let's just have a good time and learn a lot tonight. Whistleblower Mike is a professional private contractor who worked on projects connected to the U.S. government when he experienced a startling encounter with an unidentified aerial phenomena, otherwise known as UAP, while on the job. According to his account, the sighting occurred during a routine assignment and involved advanced aerial technology that did not resemble any conventional aircraft that he was aware of. Recognizing the significance of what he had witnessed, Mike reported the incident through official channels. His report quickly gained attention, leading to conversations with senior government personnel who were interested in documenting the details of the encounter. As the situation progressed, Mike said he was invited to provide testimony in high security environments, including 2 separate meetings inside a sensitive, compartmented information facility, otherwise known as a SCIF. These briefings allowed him to recount his experience directly to officials responsible for handling classified or sensitive aerospace information. While many details remain confidential, Mike maintains that his story was taken seriously and carefully documented. His account adds to the growing number of reports from military personnel and contractors who claim to have witnessed unexplained phenomena during the course of their duties. So let's get right to them. Whistling Mike, I want to say a big thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. You know, what's weird is I almost typed that because I'm used to being down the chat, but not today. I'm on the main stage.
Well, you know what? You started hanging around in our chat room, and I had heard your name on X a few times, so I recognized it when it was in the chat room. And I remember having a conversation with Courtney Marcassani, and I said, "Hey, what do you know about this Whistling Mike?" And she's like, "Dave, get him on your show. Whatever you do, get him on your show. He's the real deal." And so I am so glad to have you here. And I'm even more thankful that you're a fan of this show and you trust this program.
Yeah, for sure. I'm somehow still in chat, so I'm better than I thought. So for everybody throwing some at me, I haven't quite figured out how to answer back yet, but I do see it. But I mean, the show just kind of caught on with me. It's a longer show, which is needed, even in some of the intro stuff, with the hours we have here today, I can actually clear it up. And that's always been the problem with every story. This story goes over decades, is actually having the time and the right questions to get down to business. So I like what it does. I don't always agree or believe with some of the folks that are on, but what needs to happen does, which is that they get a chance to come on here and tell their story. And that's all you can really ask. So that's usually why I jump on here and watch it. It's a good place to hang out.
Well, I appreciate that, my friend. I really do. Do you like the term whistleblower?
Boy, that's a tough one. To jump into here, because I am a late night guy, so I'm going to be fireworks the whole time. I don't need any caffeine. When I first came out, and we'll get into this here later, it's the old saying about you have to pick your battles, right? I think it was Churchill that was saying, like, you can't stop and throw rocks at every dog that barks at you. You never get where you're going. So one of the two things that came out was about whether or not I was in a SCIF, and we'll get into this. But as all of the information would come out, even with Tim Phillips himself would say, yeah, he was in a SCIF. All the folks that like to jump on stuff had to back down and be like, okay, that's not supposed to happen, but it did. And then the second one is this guy a whistleblower? Because at the time I wasn't a federal contractor, government employee, or clearance. Now you're also not supposed to be in the SCIF if you don't have any of those, but obviously as we've seen, and they've self-admitted I have. And so I didn't really want to get into that battle because it's like I'm trying to clear my name from some of the stuff Tim Phillips had said. I don't have time to argue over the whistleblower, but here's what I want to say now, which is that when this all started, and before I really got in with Ivan Hanel, who of course has been on the show as one of my legal representatives, I actually reached out to John Kiriakou. Now, if that name sounds familiar, that's the gentleman who served time in prison for essentially exposing the CIA torture program. And he helped me actually come up with whistleblowing lawyers. And one of the things I described to him was my situation. I don't have clearance. I'm not a government employee. They're telling me all of a sudden I'm not a whistleblower. Can you help me out? And he said, they're wrong, Mike. They're wrong. So a guy that served time as a whistleblower and a couple others, consider me one of their own. The other part of that is just recently, actually today, I was able to finally get on the phone with SSCI because I have the receipts where they said it, and they finally admitted that they identified me as a whistleblower. The difference is it's a whistleblower without protections, legal protections. Those are two different things. It's kind of like when you get into the SAPs, you might have a waived SAP or unacknowledged SAP. So they have, in their own words, identified me as a whistleblower. So yeah, I do consider myself a whistleblower. What I don't like about the term is it's not a simple term, as I've kind of just described here. You can be a whistleblower with protection. You can be a whistleblower that's not covered under protection. As we've seen already, the Senate passed a bunch of additional whistleblower protections to get everybody in the SCIF. And now you got the House that's saying, like Burchett and Burleson, we need to pass more. What is this all about? Like, if you're a whistleblower, why do you have to wait for the right amount of protection? Or sometimes you don't have any. So in that way, I don't like the term. But from this point on, that's what I'm referring to myself as. If people who have served prison time in the courts and SSCI calls me whistleblower, I'm not interested in what a bunch of trolls on Twitter want to argue with me, you know?
Tell us your story. How did this all begin?
Well, I'm still a kid is from a town that doesn't have a stoplight, self-made. And, I've done things. I've been the VP for a company that was publicly traded. And I built myself up, but I still don't mind getting my hands dirty. And at one particular time, I was invested in a company, having to be coming home late at night, spotted what we're going to refer to as a UAP. And we'll go into that a little bit later, what that means. And we just happen to have the ability to see more of it and gather more information from it than the normal sighting, which is that, Farmer Bob's in his field saw something, or somebody saw a light so far away. So we got a very, very close view, 50 foot and less for 10 minutes. And that was really the start of all this. So when this all happened, as you can imagine, you don't know who to call, right? So I called out to some of the authorities, and you get sent into the weird desk, right? Crazy desk. You're saying, hey, I was out in the middle of Kansas at 3 a.m. I saw a craft hovering. Eventually they just hang up on you, right? I can't blame them. So that was kind of that. And then we started to work on this whole program of what is it? How does it work? How to track it? All this documentation of figuring out what it is. And it got to the point to where our technology was so good and we had the ideas of how the stuff travels, where we were picking up lots of stuff, various X type of planes, not just the UAP. So we tried to direct sell to the military. Now, if you're not familiar with contracting, there's a term called the Valley of Death. You can Google it right now and put defense contractor in there. It's unfortunately the way things go, which is that as the small guy, regardless of how good you are, you can't get a contract. That's the Valley of Death. It's talked about, whether it be Facebook, Twitter. I got a buddy that writes on LinkedIn about it. It's just a horrible thing. So, the definition of insanity, right, is to keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results. So we didn't want to do that. We want to try something different, try to direct sell the military. We provided proof, information, and we did get their attention, but their attention wasn't to buy. Their attention was, how in the world do these guys know this stuff? So everybody from AFOSI to Cyber Command, did we hack, whatever, was trying to investigate us and figure us out. Even ended up at the FBI office in person for an interview. So it was a pretty negative thing. About that same time, we were looking at, how else to go about this, right? One door closes, you got to open another. And we'd met a USG employee who deals with government funding, and he gave us a lot of options. He also told us that what we'd been through was normal for this. Believe it or not, when you can do something they can't, they actually don't like it. And this is the normal reaction, right? They're all investigations at you. So ended up thinking, man, what can we do next? What can we do next? And lo and behold, this is when the whole SSCI UAP Aero thing started to kick off. And about that time, because of the treatment that we'd had, we reached out to Senate Armed Services Committee and also the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence to complain. And SSCI, because of one key term, UAPs, called back. And it really wasn't to be like, we're sorry about what you went through. They actually said, this will take the heat off of you. Can you guys come in and brief? And so that's how that whole, we're talking about early 2000s when this started. So, this is a decades-long process.
So when did your incident happen?
So usually what I say is early 2000s, and I'll tell you the reason why. And this has actually been mentioned a couple of times, even by Dr. Kirkpatrick. At one point in time, he said, and it's somewhere on YouTube, right? For all those of you who haven't gone public or talked about your experience, we thank you. So let me kind of explain what that means. That means that the first way to track something or figure out what it is actually algorithm. Even for radar, you don't just throw up a radar dish. So the algorithm is get as many possible good quality interactions, see if you can get the information, GPS, date and time, and then you start looking at things like what satellites are in the air above it, right? Different sort of qualities like that to build out an algorithm. So when you start getting matches, so if I give the exact location and we already know that the Nimitz stuff is public, you start adding up what was the same on both, and that kind of starts giving you an idea of what this thing is and how it works and how it flies, which is what we don't want to do. So that's kind of why I say early 2000s.
When this incident happened, and then all of the reporting information was being pushed forward in the last couple of years, why did you decide that this was something you needed to do, that you needed to report on this?
Well, again, we launched this as a regular business, which is you just put your toes in, right? A little bit of money. And then as it went and we started to see what our capabilities the capabilities that start to develop to where you could essentially defeat stealth for all aircraft, trillions of dollars of assets. You have something. You put more money, you put more time in it, and then of course you go to sell it. Just kind of in hindsight here for people, if you look up, we'll get into it later, the Invention Secrecy Act, I'm not even the first one that's come up with something that can defeat stealth. There was a gentleman that came up with a traffic system to monitor traffic on the highways. And when you go through the patent, everybody looks at it, including the DOD, and the DOD figured out, that can track stealth jets. So they put them in the Invention Secrecy Act. So this has happened before. And again, as I mentioned earlier, if you do the same thing right, you expect different results. It's insanity. So we didn't want to do that. So that's kind of why we pushed through the way we did. And it's always been about, such as the case with SSCI, which is that we are a business looking for a contract. So again, when people were like, well, you're not a whistleblower. Well, yeah, I'm out here. First and foremost, I'm a business that can do something nobody else can. And we're trying to get our contract. But as they're kind of running you through the rugs, wanting information, it's pretty obvious you're just a whistleblower to them, which is another way of saying they're not going to pay you. Let's be honest.
So just for clarification for our audience, in case they missed it, you're not a military member. You are a private contractor who does work for the U.S. government.
Yeah, that definitely needs cleared up because it's bounced around. First and foremost, this story, would be a novel of books. So, understandably so, it gets to be a bit confusing. But to clear that up completely, I've never served in the military. I actually have a health condition where when you went to sign up, you weren't allowed because you couldn't go through boot camp, they thought, even though it's like, give me a break, I play sports and everything else. So wasn't that I didn't want to, but wasn't allowed. So with that said, we actually are the only people in the history of the SSCI SCIF to go in and not have a clearance or be military members in that SCIF. That SCIF, if you're familiar with the SSCI, is considered the most powerful committee in DC. That's where the world secrets of the intelligence agency are. And when you have the goods, they brought us in. But at that point in time, I still was not a contractor. We did an assignment for them, figuring out what's what, whose is what, under the guise that there was this deal that was coming. And this is what was going to get it, right? You always got to keep proving yourself. And it never came. The whole point in time, we've had a government funding expert who deals with this sort of stuff, high-tech stuff, invention secrecy stuff, brief SSCI on how to get us funded, brief Eric Burleson on how to get us funded. But we haven't actually got that deal down. So what we are trying to finally get that last signature, which is the only thing standing between us, done. So oftentimes you'll hear people still refer to us as defense contractors, not really because we have the exact technical definition of it, but because, as Eric Burleson has said on some of his interviews, when he brought in some of the stuff we had and showed people in the know of black programs, it was jaw dropping to them that somebody could get this. So they just kind of put us at that level of defense contractors, not the technical term.
Had you ever thought about UFOs prior to this incident?
I'll tell you a funny story, actually, that I haven't told anyone, because normally it's just all about, nitty gritty here. So the short answer is no, but I do remember seeing the movie Fire in the Sky. It may have been high school. I don't remember what it was, middle school, but I remember seeing it. This is back when I was younger, and I used to think things like, when they say like based on a true story, that it's completely true versus kind of got the Disney narrative or whatever it may be. So, uh, and when we first pulled up on this thing, that was the first thought that went through my mind, actually, was that movie, which is why I was so very careful about getting out of the car, and things like that. Now, everybody's got their own opinion on the gentleman that was in it. Mine is that there's some issues with the story. Had I not have seen that movie, I would have probably got out of the car a lot faster. But that was really the only thing that, very people all the time tell me, like, do you know about? And they tell me a case, and it's like, sorry, man, I've never heard of that. So was never an interest.
So when this encounter then happened, what were you thinking? What was going through your mind, and how many people outside of you saw it?
Yeah, so there would be four of us total, basically. And first it was lights, but it's lights low to the ground. And I'm trying to kind of think like what's over there, wee hours of the morning. So I couldn't think of anything that would be over there in a field. It's kind of like one of the guys joke, like, is it like Field of Dreams? There's a baseball field over there in the middle of a cornfield or something,
Right.
with lights on. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right? So it was very cautious. It wasn't guns a-blazing. I remember watching the clock, timing it. We had the windows down. It was a quiet night. You hear the crickets and stuff. I'm very familiar with aircraft and different things. And it's like, well, a plane with lights that sort of, distance from each other is still doing over 100 miles an hour when it lands. That thing should have been here already. Should have already went past us. It's too low for any runways around here. So I was actually being very careful to not drive right in the middle of an accident type of scene. And so you start creeping up, little by little, everybody's talking, do you hear anything? Couldn't hear anything. What is it? The only thing I could come up with in my head before getting up there was it was a helicopter. And it was like an emergency helicopter where sometimes if someone gets hurt, they fly them out to the middle of nowhere and throw them in and get them back to the hospital. There's not time sometimes to get an ambulance out there. And so that was another thing in my mind, is I don't want to be the dummy that drives into the middle of an accident scene, but there's no red and blue lights, right? Usually for something like that to happen, you got to have the area marked off, and nothing made sense. So once you finally get up to it and you can see the craft and, it's hovering and there's nothing under it moving, then honestly, I didn't know what it was. You don't know if it's human or alien, right? So I said the fire in the sky thing was the first thing that went into my mind. So having that much time with it and being able to look at it, and the people that were with me having extensive knowledge, there's a certain way we nip and tuck stuff in the industry, and people who've, been part of the manufacturing, we felt real confident it was human made at that point in time. And that's kind of where our minds started to switch to, oh boy, I bet there's going to be a response team coming in, and we're probably in some trouble, even though we didn't do anything. You're just in the wrong place
Right.
at the wrong time.
We're only about 25 seconds away from our first break at the bottom of the hour. And there is so much that we still need to talk about regarding what you saw and what the other guys saw, and why you believe that it was probably some man-made object and not something from outer space. I mean, there is a lot of questions that we need to ask. And I know, Mike, that you're going to be the guy who is going to tell us the answers. I mean, you're already public about it, so why not tell us as well?
Let's get after it.
Let's do it. Whistling Mike is our guest tonight. He is a UFO/UAP whistleblower. He's been into a couple of SCIFs giving his testimony to members of the U.S. government. We'll be right back and find out all that information. All right, Mike, we're clear.
Sounds good. Again, it helps watching the show to know the whole drill. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We're so glad, man. Thank you for that. All right. Thank you to In the Studio for joining us tonight. And who else jumped into our chat room? Well, it's Grantavius Maximus, everybody. Look at that. If you wave at him, he'll always wave back. Who else is here that we may have missed here? No, I think we're caught up. Oh, there's United We Stand. Mark Cosgrove, how you doing? Now we're caught up. Now we is caught up. A Lone Wanderer in Blue Skies, how you doing? Thank you for joining us. All right. I appreciate how you're taking the time to go in depth here, my friend.
No, again, this is the benefit of having a longer, outlet to actually talk and get the right questions. This is the method to do it.
D. Henderson, how you doing? Deborah Rooney, nice to see you. The Sacramento Treat, nice to have you here. Yeah, it makes things a lot easier when you have that time to explain. Derek in the Woo Poos, how you doing? All right. Let's see here. Thank you to everybody listening in on X. If you're listening in on YouTube, do us a favor. It helps with the algorithms if you give us a thumbs up. So we'd greatly appreciate your support in battling the ever-changing algorithm monster.
I've never missed a show that I haven't gave a thumbs up, so I'm hoping my show gets one, Dave. I feel bad if it doesn't.
So. I think it will. I think it totally will.
There's quite a few people that came in too that text me and let me know they were going to be in here. I don't think they're in the chat, but I know they're listening. So,
and usually at this time of night, hold on, I just got to get prepared here. That's where I put my NSA hat on. And I'd like to welcome in all the agents and agencies who are tuning us in tonight. Thank you for joining us. Give us a call sometime to say hello. You don't need the phone number. You already got it. And if you're not, probably look it up. It's out there. But thank you. Thank you for tuning us in, all you alphabeters. There we go.
Yeah, it's actually the other side of the building. It's the Cyber Command with me. You get both sides.
Well, that's good. Hi, Cyber Command as well. Emperor Penguin, how you doing? Nice to see you. And El Cid, good to have you here. I remember one time I had a friend of mine on who's pretty connected. And I think I counted 6, but there was like 10 members of NSA in our chat room that night.
Spot the Fed. I play it too in everything I do. Yep.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You know what intrigues me a little bit more, just out of sheer curiosity, but I always wonder, because most people on here have an alias, and I always wonder, wonder if anybody famous has tuned in to our show, and joined our chat room and is like a regular, and we have no idea that maybe they're some major movie star or musician or athlete or scientist.
Gotta be, because you know how popular this topic is, and they probably wouldn't want to come in their verified one. But I know for a fact, I'm not going to rat them out, but some of the SSCI members, the intelligence agency always lets me know what they were watching. I mean, they're there. It's just the way it works. So,
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. It's kind of cool if you think about it.
it is. I like those memes where they're talking about like, oh, my intelligence agency following me around is saving my memes and laughing about it, but he's also pissed. You know what I mean? Like,
We got
you got to
about
get a kick out
25
of following
seconds,
me.
right? We got about 25 seconds to go here. And thank you to Trucker Andrew for our lone super chat of the night. Thank you to everybody who hits subscribe tonight. Are you on the square? Are you on the level, Square Hammer? Let me know. I'd appreciate that. Here we go with the second half hour. We have the second half hour underway on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. I'm hosting this great show, and our guest tonight is Whistleblower, who goes by Whistling Mike, as he has appeared in a couple of UAP SCIFs at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Before we bring him back on, we want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go with Whistling Mike. Thank you for joining us, my friend. And we want to get more into your story here because 4 of you saw something. Where did it happen and what did you see?
Correct. So, like I said, it was in Kansas, and I kind of explained a little bit about the reason where we don't get too particular, but in Kansas, and it's the normal Kansas you think of, right? Flat farm fields in the summer. And as we get up to it, there were lights. I'm not going to describe the lights right now. Some of the alphabet agencies have not threatened, I want to be very careful what I say here, but asked me to keep some information. National security, right? We all love that word. So with that said, what I'll do is I'll refer to Tim Phillips, who has kind of spilled the beans on some of the things. He described some of the information I turned in as a F-117 on steroids. So when you think of a triangle, it's not an exact triangle, right? There's another little triangle that comes out where the tail fin is. If you've ever seen the bottom of one, or you can Google it and look it up. And it's not the flat triangle we keep hearing about, right? So you've got an actual body, an actual craft on top. So this is a little bit different than the normal, I think, what we're hearing about the black triangles. Although if you didn't get to see the top and you only saw it from the bottom, I think you very likely could say the exact same thing.
Was it fighter jet size?
It's exactly how I would describe it. Yeah. If you listen to some of the Fravor interviews, and I feel bad for the guy, and he complains a little bit about it. It's literally the same interview over and over and over. I don't know how many hundreds of times he's done the exact same interview with the exact same questions, but there was one that came out that had one different question in it, and they asked him about the size, and that's how he described the Tic Tac. Now, this isn't exactly the Tic Tac, but fighter jet size, 40-footish in length, and that's exactly what I would say this was. Keep in mind, that's not a Super Hornet. That's a smaller fighter jet size, but still fighter jet size.
Yeah, I mean, Super Hornet is, I believe, 47.5 feet or something like that. So
it may be 60 or 70. That thing's a boat, but the point being, it's If you saw it and you saw the build of it, you'd still say that's a fighter jet, right?
Right. Did it make any sound?
When you finally get up to it and you've got the windows down, there is a slight sort of buzz or humming, but it's not like what a craft should be doing or making, right? You know, one of the questions you get asked when you go in and you have to meet with all these intelligence agencies is they'll say, you know, well, how loud was the noise? And I keep trying to explain to them, like, quiet, really, really quiet. And, you know, they keep wanting to compare it to like, you know, a fighter jet that can throw its thrusters down. And it's like, how do you know it wasn't that? And it's like, are you kidding me, man? It would have blew my beard off and, you know, the ground would have been rumbling. So completely different than that. Just a very slight sort of buzz. If you're an electricity person, and most people aren't, but if you really want to dig into this, you could probably go to YouTube and look up the terms arcing or corona. Make sure you put electricity on that. And you'll come up with something else. But listen to that, and that's kind of what it sounds like. If you've also, or if you know what a dry transformer is, if you're ever in a building in the back, usually, I don't know about necessarily Canada, but in the US, they're almost always green. It's kind of a rectangle attached to the floor. Sometimes you'll have yellow bars around it. And that's where a bunch of your power's at. If you stand next to it and it's quiet and you listen to its hum, the electricity, that's kind of what it is. It's something so simple like that.
Was it moving or was it hovering?
So it was hovering. However, it's not like a statue up on a concrete post. There still is some movement within the hovering, be it slight, but it's not, you know, something like people really start telling stories about like how this must be alien technology because it wasn't moving completely still. It was darn near completely still, but from that close a range, you still have some movement. I don't want to say wobble, that's too much, but it's still working on hovering, you know what I mean?
No, I get that. And I'm not going to ask you about the lighting because you've already stated that you've been asked to keep that a little bit quiet. But why are you not allowed to talk about the lighting? Let me ask you that.
Sure. So, and again, I'm just here to tell the truth, and sometimes people don't like that, but when you get into, you know, let's kind of back up a little bit here if we can. The saucers, right? We all know UFOs are saucers, but then if you start researching that story, I know some people disagree on it, but you know, back at the original story, my understanding was the guy said it moved like a saucer, not it was shaped like a saucer. I think he said it was more like bat wings, but the newspaper said it was a saucer, and then everybody saw saucers. So then you get the Tic Tac, and I didn't hear about a whole lot of people seeing Tic Tacs, and then all of a sudden I heard about all these people that saw Tic Tacs. Now maybe they felt comfortable coming out, but various intelligence agencies and even myself, when people talk to me, I have to know what a credible witness is and what a credible witness isn't. And the lights are a big key if you can or can't describe the pattern or the shape or the size. If you can, then we kind of know, like, boy, this person's seen something, and the intelligence agencies are doing the same thing. So it's not that you can't know, it just really helps get on our side to the end of it. Am I talking to someone that's seen something, I know what it is, or doesn't mean you didn't see something, but it may mean you've seen something I know nothing about.
Okay, so you're looking at this craft. I'm going to assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, it happened at night?
Yeah, early hours of the morning. It's still dark.
Oh, okay, so you have this thing. How long was your experience for?
When we pulled up, one of the first things I did was position our vehicle headlights at it and turn the brights on. And the brights did not illuminate it like they should have. So what should have happened is it should have really lit up, right? You're adding a bunch more light. Instead, it was almost like the particular craft, the skin of the craft. It's not exactly how I would describe it, but the material of the craft kind of absorbed it. So the best way I can describe it is, now keep in mind we've got fancy LED light bulbs and stuff, but if you're listening to this and you're a little bit older, back in the day of school, right? You'd have a desk and you may have like a 10 or a 15-watt little light bulb screwed in. And in the middle of the night, if you turn it on, it's bright right under it. By the time you get to the end of your desk, it's complete darkness. And that's kind of the same thing it did with the brights, right? Where the brights were shining on it, but it just didn't spread from there. It was like it was being absorbed. So again, you're looking for answers, and this is everything I'm seeing is like, okay, this is just getting more and more confusing. But we ended up when we finally got out of the car. Again, I'm very calculated. So I'm thinking about my safety. I'm listening. And even though this may sound a little odd, I didn't feel like there was a danger. Like it wasn't smoking, there wasn't flames coming out of the back of it where I thought, oh, this thing's going to crash or blow up. It was like, okay, we've been sitting here and it's sitting there. Like, I mean, eventually you got to go for it, right? So when we got out, we had about 10 minutes outside with it.
By the sounds of it, and just hearing your story, that was it at vehicle level, or were you on some sort of hill looking at it so you were more equal to it?
So it was hovering off the ground, but not vehicle level. With that said, when you have the opportunity to walk a complete circle around it and under it, you start to pick it up. But it's low enough where you're picking out details. You're picking out how many panels are on the bottom, right? You can count them easily. Stuff like this. You can see attachment points. I mean, that particularly close, but not even with our vehicle.
Okay. So when you're looking at this thing, I'm going to assume, please correct me if I'm wrong, that this is happening on some sort of military base or close to it.
So just so we make sure we legally say this, it was on public land. There was a base close to it, as in miles, but this is, as far as any sort of restrictions or, restricted space, nothing like that.
Okay. As you were having this encounter that lasted a number of minutes, were you thinking that this was human? Were you thinking you're staring at a UFO and having a close encounter? What's going through your mind at this point as you're looking at this?
Arguing. That's really what was going through my mind with myself. You're looking at one thing and you're leaning this way, but then you're saying, we all know this, statement, right? But look what it's doing performance wise, right? And then you look at it some more and you say, boy, that's got to be human made. Burleson actually said the same thing. And one of the things I provided him is it's definitely human made by looking at it. And there can be an argument there. But my point being, it seems really like your mind's telling you it's human made. But then what does your mind say? It says, what is it doing out in the middle of nowhere, though? Hovering, right? So it's an argument. So I was continually going back and forth most of the time. The only thing I will say is, once I got past the whole thoughts of fire in the sky, right, at no point in time did it feel like there was a endangerment. And I know it's like, what do you mean you're by a craft that was there? I've grown up, this sort of thing and around planes and flying and different stuff. And so, I mean, it was a very controlled environment where you're just kind of thinking to yourself, not am I dreaming? Because there's 4 of you, right? And everybody's talking, but just, what in the world is going on? What's next,
As someone who has had a couple of close encounters with a couple of craft, and it happened 10 years apart, almost 10 years apart. I know that feeling of what's going through your head. It's a weird feeling because your brain is not comprehending what your eyes are looking at. At any time when you were having this encounter, were you thinking, we need to get the hell out of here?
No. So, and this has kind of been released. This particular craft did have what I'm going to say would appear to be, and I'll explain that in a minute, would appear to be a cockpit in the exact place you would think a cockpit would be on a fighter jet type aircraft. And so when you get into drones, right, there's plenty of drones where if you look at them, you say, why does it have a cockpit? Well, there's reasons, and it's not a cockpit. So that doesn't always mean, there's a pilot and whatnot in there. But I remember towards the end trying to stare and with their monitoring equipment, trying to figure out if anybody was in it, but it was dark. Like the cockpit, I'll say glass. I don't know if it was glass or not, but it was dark. So that was what I was really left with at the end, is like, if I can catch a glimpse of what's in that cockpit, that'll give me some answers, but it was just too dark. So thinking back on it is more of where I was like, boy, that was kind of a crazy thing to do, but when you're there, and maybe it's just because was so intrigued and
Yes.
I'm into the engineering and science. I was just like trying to get more data, more information, is, kind of like when you have gold fever and you're not thinking straight. That's what it was.
Forgive me if this question is a little bit too personal on this, but are you allowed to speak of what you saw? Like, I know you've kind of described that it's plane size, but like, did you see any markings of United States Air Force or Navy, or did you see anything, or was it just too dark?
So we had some monitoring equipment. I gotta be a little careful what I say because, like I said, lots of agencies listen to me. And right now we're on a friendly basis, but if that ever turns, you only want so much out there. But I am 100% confident, not on the complete top, because we couldn't obviously see the complete top, from a ground level. There were no markings, no numbers, no markings, no flags. I am aware people brought up, what about Danny Sheehan and all the symbols he saw? No symbols, nothing like that. So nothing.
Did you leave before it left, or did it leave before you?
Oh, I'm not leaving, as you can imagine. So
I meant the craft.
Oh no, I know what you're saying. I'm just joking and saying there's no way I would have left before it did. You know what I mean? Like I'm glued on this thing.
Right.
So, and this is where I was speaking about the sound. One of the things about the sound is that when it would kind of have to readjust a little bit to kind of level off again. That wasn't wobbly, but your front gets a little too far down. You got to raise it. There was never like a big increase in this buzz. So you think of like a traditional power plant, right? Before a plane takes off, it gets loud, right? They got the thrusters going. Same thing with this particular craft. When it took off, it essentially turned its lights off, and then particular other ones come back on. And then you see the bleep, which is kind of what I call I can't go into it a whole lot, but we're calling it cavities or bubbles or whatnot. It doesn't take off in the fighter jet scenario that it's in. It has to go into a little different mode, and then it's just gone. Like you hear, I think Fravor say bloop or whatever it is, and then it's gone straight up. So that's it. You're just standing there. But again, not a piece of grass moved. Nobody got radiation burns. None of these, there was no, I'm not making fun of anybody, but there was no, ESP messages. It was just like watching an aircraft, but the aircraft was where it shouldn't have been. And it was doing performance characteristics like you shouldn't have been able to see. Now I have a lot of knowledge. My family does, they built for the space program. Even all of them did not know we were this far ahead. So again, it was a confusing, just information gathering sort of thing for me versus maybe just like panicking like a normal person probably should have, or that sort of a thing.
How was your crew reacting?
I think, honestly, if it would have been one person, it would have been different. I got asked that once, and it was a good question. And it was, if you were by yourself when you got out, I don't think I would have. As brave as I am, just it's kind of like that idea of like nobody knows where you're at or different things. So I mean, like if something happened to you, either you're gone and your car's there, or you're there with radiation burns and the craft's gone. Not worth it to me, you know. I mean, so with the four of us, I guess, whatever it is, kind of like you can have liquid courage, you can have group courage. And so everybody was talking through it. Again, we had a lot of people with extensive amount of knowledge, and we're going back and forth talking the whole point in time of what we're seeing. So again, it was just like you would break down seeing something and documenting it.
Right off the bat of the show, as we got about 3.5 minutes to go, I had asked you, do you consider yourself to be a whistleblower? What do you think of that term? And you gave a great answer for that. As you made the decision to come out and talk about this subject, privately, were you nervous at all? Or did you think you were just doing the right thing because that's the way that they were presenting it? Like, hey, if you've seen anything, come tell us.
Well, again, from the business angle, it was purely about getting a deal that says we can track what you don't think's trackable. We've got the documentation of what you says doesn't exist. In a good way, let's work together. When that went south, it was really when Tim Phillips, as we get into it, came out and said that I was accused me of extortion, and that based on what he had heard from a senator's staff, he wouldn't trust me around one's family, where I said, man, I got to get out and correct those statements right off the bat. The problem is that was so damning that until I can completely get those corrected, if I reveal my identity, I'm now the guy that a gentleman who was an SES and on a paycheck that the DOD said was extorting the United States government. Doesn't work real well for your business, And the guy who said that I wasn't safe to have one around one's family, how's my kids' friends and their family going to feel about that? So I've got to get that corrected.
Do you regret coming out?
No. We got talking about this one time, my group, and it was really like, why me? That's a question you actually ask a lot in this. There's good and bad. And one particular person I listened to a lot told me, it's like, is a religious person, and they were like, you got picked because they knew like you wouldn't give up, like you'd see it through to the end. And that's kind of how I view it, where I'm like, all right, let's go, right? Bring it. I'm not backing down. Invention Secrecy Act, accuse me of extortion, whatever it is, right? And I think they've been surprised by that I haven't folded.
I don't know if I would have the ability to do that. I mean, is it the right thing to do? Probably. But on the flip side, knowing that, trusting the government on this, I mean, it's just so risky. It sounds so risky. But I understand your concept and point that, I mean, you're a contractor. You need to be able to work with these guys, and that's how you feed your family and pay your bills.
There's one customer, and they are a pain to deal with.
Yeah. But on the flip side, it's a give and take, right?
For sure. And that's when we get into the contract. One of the problems with the contract is, as Burleson has hinted, it's complicated, is we're looking for an exact type of contract that protects us from everything. So it's not so much trust the government as it is leverage and positioning to make sure we end up doing all right with this. And so do they.
I'm glad to hear that you don't have regret over it, because there have been people, like even when I talked to Jason Sands, he was wondering whether or not it was worth it. Or if you heard, at the last hearings, Dylan Borland, of all the craziness that happened to him, whether or not it was worth it to come out as well. So the fact that that didn't happen to you, I mean, I guess if you weren't in that position where you needed the contract for your private business, would it have been different?
I advise people, as much as the community may not like it, keep your face hidden. Keep all your receipts, blot out your email, right? Blot out your name.
And on that note, Whistling Mike is coming back for hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio. When we return, what's it like being in a SCIF? We'll be right back. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Mike, we're going to take a little break. I'm going to put you in the background, and we got about 5.5 minutes, okay?
Sounds good. Can't believe it's been an hour already.
I know, man. It's flying on by. We're having this is so much fun. Thank you. Be right back, everybody. I am back. Let's bring in Whistling Mike. How you doing, buddy? Oh, let me get you unmuted here. Oh, you're muted. He must not be at his desk yet. The problem with not having video. That's okay.
Hey, I'm back there, Dave. Sorry.
Oh, no worries, man. No worries.
Got some stormy weather, so I did what you're always supposed to do, which is go stand on the porch and check it out.
Well, in your area, you get them tornadoes, don't you?
You got possible. All the tornado chasers are in the area for tonight and tomorrow, working up from Texas to Oklahoma into Kansas, and there's a lot of lightning and rumbling. So we'll see what happens.
All right, perfect. We got about a minute to go here.
All right.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. All right.
I don't know how you get through it without drinking water the whole time. I've been through like 4 bottles of water, man. You must be able to sing or something real well. Just a lot of talking.
If you saw my desk and saw how many glasses I have of water on here.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you tonight to Trucker Andrew and Deborah Rooney for the super chats. We greatly appreciate your love and support of Spaced Out Radio. Thank you. Eva, how are you? We're coming back in 5 seconds, everybody. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. We will get to Whistling Mike and what it's like to be a UFO whistleblower coming on up here momentarily. But first, we want to say hello to all of you listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Kalan. Kalan is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Now, Mike, I want to bring you in here because, you know, I know there are a lot of people when it comes to these hot button topics such as UFOs / unidentified anomalous phenomena. And I, over the years, have always said that there is a difference between the two. I think the government is very wishy-washy of what they know about UFOs, and they're able to cover up everything under UAP, whether it's a birthday balloon, a garbage bag, their own technology, or anything else that could be misconstrued. Now, for you, thinking that this was some sort of American-made project, would you consider that to be a UAP, or do you kind of lump them all together?
I've definitely always looked at UAP as the U being unidentified, kind of like the UFO. But of course, the UFO was 100% an alien. So that was really my thought process of when they went to UAP. And I went back and forth on it, but I thought that was probably a good idea to where you can get back to just it's unidentified. Let's figure it out. So, you know, for me, and because of what I've seen and what we went through, and, you know, as Tim Phillips said, material we've gathered and analyzed, and I have my own opinion on this being human tech. For me, UAP now just means performance where, you know, we're calling it physics defying. And that's the sort of special craft it is. So again, for me, the UAP would be like the Tic Tac, right? Things like that, not still alien, although if people think they see something and they call it alien, hey, it's fine. It's just this special performance craft is where I group it all together. And I put things like orbs and everything else out of there. You got to have an actual physical craft that can do things that people think it shouldn't.
When you got called, or let me rephrase this as we kind of move on here, okay? How did the process go for you ending up going to testify about what you saw? Take us through the process, because I think a lot of our listeners are curious on how this works.
Yeah, and it's a good thing you asked me because it's not quite as romantic of an idea as I think a lot of people have. So we talked for several months with SSCI. They were literally begging us, in their own words, to come in. And of course, we're a company. So again, we didn't go in to blow the whistle. We were like, how would this help us? And so, they were saying, well, it'll take the heat off of you from all the intelligence agencies. And, basically, we'll help you get a deal. We'll help you push it forward. And so that's the only path we had, right? The USG is the only customer, really. So we agreed to come in. They gave us some dates. This is going on in the time where Kirkpatrick was up there on TV back when the SSCI used to actually kind of do the briefings and the hearings. And he was saying, well, we're very understaffed, so be very selective who you pick. I got a text that said, hey, you watching the hearing, whatever. And I was like, yeah. And they said, well, you guys get to pick first. So in other words, give us the date, not you're real special. It was like, man, hurry up and pick a date. Right. So they gave us some dates, picked a date out that worked for us. But then as normal, they want you to also go to the Scif the exact same day. So it's where it gets into this whole mess that it was. So they don't schedule that for you. They then give you Aero's email, and you have to schedule with Aero, get the answer back from Aero and tell them, and then see if their schedule's still open. This is the methods of the Senate Select Committee of Intelligence in the Pentagon. Not, you wonder why things go wrong and issues. So I get the email for Aero. I email Aero. I get nothing back. SSCI is blowing up my phone, texting me saying, what's going on? Did you get the date? Did you get the date? Like, I got to put you down on the calendar, right? I got to put you down on our calendar. And so I was like, man, I still didn't hear from them. So they're like, email them again and, copy me, but in the blind copy, right? So they don't see it. I was like, all right. So email them again, blind copy the staff at SSCI. They said, you hear back? I said, look, man, there's nothing I can do, right? I'm just waiting. There's nothing I can do. Then one day I get a phone call from Aero, and they tell me, hey, sorry, your emails went to spam. Now, this is funny for many reasons. The biggest one being I had already been emailing and talking to SSCI and various other, folks within the government and staff. Never once did it ever go into spam. There was the original Aero email that got, leak's not the right word. I think a gentleman was just showing some of his receipts, and as people do, they were able to, pull it off the visual image. And if you see that address, it's literally like 100 random characters thrown together. It's not like, Dave at, spaced out, something simple. There's no way in the world anybody's going to come up with numbers, letters, dashes. And so the idea that it would for some reason go into spam, which it didn't for anybody else, or that you wouldn't be checking your spam folder, knowing people are going to be contacting you and knowing there's not going to be a single spam email in there. The story was ridiculous, and SSCI thought the same thing. So basically, SSCI kind of rode Aero to get the date. I get the date, SSI gets the date, so then we're confirmed we're going to DC. Get to DC. We'd already had kind of a working relationship for a couple months with SSCI. Meet up with those guys the night before. talk through some stuff and different things. And then early that morning, we show up there and we go into the SCIF. It's 219. That's not a secret for anybody. So second floor, right, number 2. And they lead us in there. Now, I won't get too far from this story, but that's what you want to do. You want to have them lead you in there. Not all SCIFs are the same. I want to make this very clear, because when I had arguments with people over was I in a SCIF or not a SCIF, SSCI SCIF is where things come in from the CIA about terrorist organizations or bombings. This is a very, very secure SCIF. So when you walk through the first door, the first thing you have is an armed guard sitting at a desk. SSCI staff has to sign you in. Even when we were in there with National Security Council, they couldn't sign us in. We had to wait for the SSCI staff to get there. The guards got to allow you to go in. You got to leave all your electronics, right? All that sort of stuff. One time, because we went in several times over 2 years, we said, we'll meet you there. And we went in without the SSCI staff. And the guy behind the desk jumped up. And, if you've ever heard Matt Laszlo talk about this, he talks about, I'll take you on a tour, but there's a guard every 6 foot, and that's his 6 foot. So whatever he says goes. Man, we had about 100 foot of guards, even with long guns, following behind us, wanting to know, what are you doing and why are you in this room before you can get to the SCIF. And of course, the staff wasn't answering their phones. They were still in a meeting and they hadn't scheduled it. So it wasn't on the schedule. So we're trying to explain, we got a meeting come up. But so just be aware, if you get called to the SCIF, wait on the SSCI staff. But you get in there, and I probably shouldn't say the whole layout, right? You kind of got to get led back in there, and you get locked in, and you sit at the same table that the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence does. Tuesday, I think. And essentially, the table's yours. You start going over it. So you go over it, you break it down, you take all the questions. It's a very, very small, it's a big room for a SCIF, but there's so many people in there. It is cramped. And then you finish up there. That particular SCIF, I won't go into a whole lot, but it's not what you think of a SCIF, right? So it's a fancy SCIF, as you would think.
Let me stop you right there, because I want to just explain what a SCIF is. So it is called, SCIF stands for Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility. What's it like on the inside of these?
So, yeah, that's what a SCIF is. Essentially, a SCIF has to be certified. It has to be so thick of metal. It has to be soundproof. Heating and air has to be its own system. It can't allow any, listening in, listening out. You can't take electronics into there. In other words, it is a quiet box. This particular one is for the world secret, right? This is SSCI. So they're getting the briefings from FBI, CIA. So this particular one, like I say, is the fancy SCIF. This is where you would think very important senators are going to be. So it's a little more dressed up. When you go in, it's kind of like getting into a submarine, right? You have to kind of step in and you got to get locked in the door and all that sort of stuff. But overall, it's just a big desk. It's not like the SCIF you see on the Guy with the SCIF podcast. There's no electronics on there. There's no windows. You're just locked in a giant, thick metal box.
And the theory is there's enough soundproofing going on to keep any type of signal out of there if anybody tries to listen in from the outside, correct?
Yes, sir. They also, because of where it's at and the thickness, they can't run over it and figure out how many people's in there or anything, or everything is just quiet. So whatever you say is safe. And again, there's no electronics. So you have to be able to put this presentation on old school. Papers you hand out, briefing papers, they take notes. You don't have access to a PowerPoint or something like that.
Right.
It's very, very old school is how I'm going to put it.
Are the acoustics weird in there?
In that one, not so much. But again, this is, SSCI has their own SCIF.
Right.
So with the budget and with the senators, many who, go on to be, Secretary of States and presidents and things, it's a fancy one. So that one's not too bad.
Right.
You can get yourself a bottle of water, it's not too bad in that particular one. But, they lock the door and me used to always kind of joke like it was like a baby was being born. And this one particular guy, the way he'd say it, he'd lock the door and he'd be like, the time is 10:43, 8, like, all right, man, just say the door's locked. And they say, okay, so right now we're under SCIF rules and you got to go through all that, right? And they double check you haven't brought any electronics on, but they're monitoring for it anyway, obviously, you know what I mean, on the outside of the box. So, I mean, they know if you're lying or not, but it kind of depends on how much they trust you. We were in pretty good with them, so we didn't have a whole lot of trouble, but it's just a weird scenario. But once you sit down, you're in a little room at a desk with some very important people.
Are you allowed to say who is in the SCIF with you, people wise, or no?
Some of it's already out. So anytime you go in for this particular thing, you're going to get not all. Kind of depends on who you are and what your story is. I mean, I'm not trying to sound bad, but they kind of gauge on, do they want to come and hear what you have to say? Like we pre-submitted some stuff and different things, briefing papers. And, if you're a little more heavy on things like alien, you may have people that don't show up in the Senate. That's just kind of the way they were in the Senate. So, you get SSCI staff your first time in, you get legal counsel, their legal counsel, not yours. And then that's where you present. So when you hear people say, I went and did 2 SCIFs, what they're talking about is that's the first SCIF. The second SCIF is at Aero. Now for us, we continually went back over several years, requested back into the SSCI SCIF, but we had Senator Rounds several times. He ended up getting our case from our own senator in Kansas, Senator Moran, who just didn't really want to touch the topic. And you see that with a lot of people, especially when you find out what's in Kansas skies. He didn't really want to be responsible, is my words, not his. So be careful here. So him and his SSCI staff turned us over to Senator Rounds, and most of it was Senator Rounds. But the information we brought in was briefed to most of the senators. Tim Phillips has said that the information I had, the chairman of the committee, approached him on and want to send him to Area 51 over. So I won't mention their names here because some people, the story's already out, and some people I think are still somewhat on my side. But we had all the big folks, and keep in mind the SSCI is the top of the food chain, but we had chairs, co-chairs, about everybody that could matter at some point in time, or all, several of them at once.
Was it intimidating to look across at these people and just, kind of look at them just staring at you to listen to your answers to their questions?
Not really, because when we first started going in, the SSCI committee, and I'm not going to go into names here, but they had great leadership on this. It was very well done. You hear about all these whistleblowers and their problems. That was at a staff change. I'll just leave it at that. When people started to run into problems. So it's not like you felt like you were in there on your own. Now they do literally just say, all right, come on in and brief these people. And it's like, well, I have an idea what to do. And I have people on my team that have an idea what to do, but I've never briefed, folks on the gang of 8 in a secure setting before, so I'm going to guess at how this goes, but really they just want to ask their questions. They want stuff presented. They'll send people out of the SCIF to go make a call and verify it. That's the big thing with the SSCI is where the House and the UAP caucus has so much trouble is when you're a member, and almost all the people we met with were members of both Armed Services Committee and the SSCI, where you can just step out, your staff can make a call to the Pentagon or the NGA and get something verified and come back in and nod, right? So, once they trust you, they listen. It was actually, I don't want to say it was intimidating, but there were some times they turned up the heat um, on us. Now you probably tell from me and even my story of first time seeing it, I don't really get rattled easy. Panic's usually what gets you in trouble. So luckily for me, I guess by nature I'm calm. I grew up in a family that made fireworks and stuff. So when you're raised in a fireworks tent, you don't always jump on something. Maybe you should. You know what I mean? Your nerves are a little thicker than other people, but no. It was what it was. I actually hated going because coming from Kansas and the skiff times they would give you, you would have to fly in the day before. So you got one day, then you got that second day, and then you're not going to get a late enough flight out, and they would ask you to stay an additional day in case they need you to come back, right? Well, can you come back tomorrow? And we got some more questions. So it's a 3-day thing. You got to fly several people in, you got hotels, but no, in all honesty, I think the word's out now that my dad's the co-founder of the company with me. It was actually kind of an experience for me and my dad to go through and just look at each other and be like, man, we get into some crazy, sort of scenarios.
Yeah, I guess you didn't really expect this one to happen. You mentioned there was a difference between Skiff 1 and Skiff 2, where Skiff 1 was more, almost calm and relaxed. Skiff 2 was a little bit more pressing on things. Why do you think there was that difference?
Well, again, Skiff 1, as you can imagine, with a bunch of high profile senators and whatnot, is kind of decorated like an office. Now, because of the dimensions of the room, right, and you got to step in like a submarine. I mean, you're still locked into a vault essentially, but when you're just sitting at the table and you're talking and you get kind of dry mouth a little bit, staff will slide you a bottle of water across, and so that's a good deal. Now you go over to Aero, and Kirkpatrick said this already, so it's public knowledge, but Aero is not at the Pentagon. Aero is at what he described as, and it is a secret location. You have to sign a non-disclosure to go into that particular location. So right off the bat, again, I just talked about me and my dad looking at each other. We were looking at each other on that, like, what in the world? Now we're going into secret locations, to go into a skiff to brief people on UAP. So that particular one I had issues with, and the reason I had issues with was just Aero. One of the things when I talked on the phone to him, I said is anything that is legal, I want to have in advance, right? I want to be able to go over it before we get there. And this was kind of a trick we were warned about. Oh, yeah. We'll get that to you, and it's no big deal. And we get there, and it's like, okay, I think everybody's seen the text messages that came out from like Kirkpatrick talking to Mellon about Grush, where it's like, okay, we're in the lobby. Where is he? Right? Like, it's this weird environment. Come down and get you, right? You go up, and then they're like, okay, here's the NDA to sign. And it's like, man, I told you I wanted that in advance to go over it. And it's like, well, if you don't sign it, you can't go any further. And it's like, you guys know we spent thousands coming out here in the middle of, summer tourist season. This is ridiculous. And it's like, well, you either sign it or, too bad. And then they're like, well, I've signed, I don't know how many of these I've signed in my lifetime. It's all the same one. And we're going over questions with them. We're like, are we covered under whistleblower, all this? And they flip it over on the back. They're like, yeah. You guys are covered. You couldn't go in the skiff if you weren't covered, which I think is why SSCI today admitted that they referred to me as a whistleblower. That gets them out of the legal limbo of not having clearance or being, military and being in there. So we sign it, right? I mean, we don't have anything to hide. I don't commit any crimes. So sign it. They lead you into the area where you have to put your, belongings, your electronics, padlock them in. And even then it was kind of fishy because they were like, yeah, there's a combination on it. You can set your combination on it. I never set it. And we were kind of looking at each other like, man, you guys are already shady. I'm going to set the combination on my box. Put it in. Now, SSCI has a guard that does all this, but So then you set the combination on it, but like they're standing over your shoulder looking at the combination. So I mean, like it's just a bad. The whole thing is shady and bad. So you finally get into there, and it is what you think of with the SCIF. It's like being in a concrete box from a poorly lit, movie scene, and here they all come to surround you at a table that you probably couldn't put a large pizza on if you wanted to.
Hold that thought, Mike. We're going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Whistling Mike continues what it's like to be in a SCIF next on Spaced Out Radio. What a great show tonight. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, Mike, we're clear.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, man. It's all good. It's good times right now, man.
Yeah, again, it amazes me like how fast time goes. I'm already trying to figure out how much can I get fit into the last little bit here. It's amazing when you're actually trying to tell the proper type of story to.
Well, like I said, I mean, if you want to continue on going into excuse me, going into hour 3, you're more than welcome to stick around.
Hey, you tell me when I get to the point where I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. I'll talk until then. I'll probably lose track of the time anyway. I just get talking and going.
Sure.
So.
Well, the good part about it is the breaks kind of break it up, but we're having a lot of fun, and I think our audience would love it if you stuck around too. They seem to be having a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, it's a good deal, man. Again, it's now I'm getting used to this side, so now I'll be trying to talk instead of type in the next episode.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm doing okay for you?
Yeah, you're doing good. And just Julie's out there. I want to thank her. I can't imagine how many hours she puts in along with you of trying to like keep this thing afloat of, the chat room and all these people that.
Oh, yeah.
Takes a lot to put a show together by all means.
Jules is pretty amazing. That's for sure. All right. Got about 3.5 minutes here.
Oh, okay. Thanks for that super chat. I'm still trying to figure out how to do a super chat, but I think I finally had it explained to me.
There's a little box when you're in the YouTube chat. When you're signed in, there's a little box down below the chat that has a $ sign on it, I believe.
Okay, so you just probably have to put your card in or buy some YouTube dollars or something.
No, you just put your if you have your card hooked up to your phone, it'll go right to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've done good. I was actually kind of worried about power going out or anything like that, but the storm went to the south of us, so this round I think is over.
Oh man, I got so many more questions to ask you, my man. It's going to be good.
Hey, thank you there in chat. I'm not sure if I should call you EI or if it's EL, but
I think that's LFID.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. Sorry, I got my mic on the left side and I'm trying to look diagonally without my glasses.
Yeah, I think El Cid wears a wrestling mask, so that way nobody knows his identity.
I should have thought of that.
Right?
I appreciate that, man. It's good to have some people's support, through this. It's always good to hear.
All right. Bonjour, Sylvain. Comment ça va?
Oh yeah, and just real fast, the Scouse is actually Scouse. That's a Liverpool thing. That's
yes.
No,
I know that. I just like calling him Scouse.
Oh, okay. You're gonna get him mad.
Uh-huh.
My dad's got the accent bad. I don't, but I could definitely go into some of the terminology. My dad really speaks Scouse. It's hard to understand what in the world he's saying.
Well, what I do is for people who've been here a long time, they always get nicknames from me. So that way it's a little
I
bit
like
more
it.
personal.
That's the good part about hanging out each night. That's what I like about it, man. I gotta give you credit for putting this show on every night.
Resist, how you doing? Good to see you. All right, we got about 37 seconds. Thank you tonight to Trucker Andrew, Debaruni, Maggie, and Matthew for the super chats. Greatly appreciate your love and support of SOR, everybody. Don't forget, if you haven't already, give us a thumbs up. It really helps with our YouTube algorithms as well. You can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out. We'd appreciate it. And you can get your tickets for the 2026 Caribou event, cariboucon.com. Go check it on out. Here we go. We're into the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're having a lot of fun with our guest, Whistling Mike, a UAP UFO whistleblower. And he's talking about what it's like and the pressure it is to go through a SCIF. What is a SCIF, you were asking? It is a sensitive compartmented information facility, which is basically a building that you go in, or a room in a building you go in. No cell phones allowed, no electronics allowed, no iPhone wrist watches or anything like that. Got to go in naked, except for your clothing on, but electronically naked. And you go into a sound sensitive room that is locking in the sound. That's what it is. And you've done that. And I don't know if I would be comfortable in doing that, man. It just seems, Mike, that it would be, kind of bring a reality to it all that most of us probably will never comprehend.
It's about finding that comfortable place, right? It's kind of like that go to your happy place. But like once I get going on putting a presentation and, in this case, a briefing, like I just get involved in that versus, uh, what's going on. But yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. One thing I'll say is never, ever go in without a second person to be your witness, because again, there's no electronics. So you're overmanned already if it comes to how many people say this or how many people say that. And it probably will, like it did with me. So again, Aero, I didn't have a plan to go to. SSCI, again, in their own words, were like, we're begging you to go. And I was like, why, right? Like, I'm not military, I'm not this. And they actually said, because we can't get anybody to go. Nobody wants to go over there. Everybody's terrified to go into Aero. So, I mean, I don't know, you can call it brave, foolish, whatever you want. But I was like, yeah, man, my story will stand, right? It'll walk on its legs. Like, they were like, okay, man, we're warning you, it's trial by fire. And I was like, let's do it, right? I mean, like, we're going to DC, we're going to brief. We've spent decades on this. Let's get our deal. So, you just have to go in with that mentality of like, let's get it on, as old Miles Lane would say,
What was it like dealing with Aero?
Well, nosy. That's what it is. On the way over there, I was like, because, staff drove me over there. And they were like, okay. I was like, who's going to be in there? And NDA, I can't say who all was in there, but Kirkpatrick, I can say, because he's public facing. And they said Kirkpatrick. So I was like, who am I going to get? And they're like, oh, you're going to get Kirkpatrick because of that story I told you earlier where they were messing us around. They're like, we put our finger on them. So you're definitely getting Kirkpatrick. So I get in there, and this is public now, but I don't think a lot of people caught it. But Kirkpatrick wasn't living there, so he would like fly in and out when he needed to for like the big witnesses or the people. So you get in there, and in some ways it was better than SSCI. Like when I came out of SSCI, I was trying to get all my paperwork back together and everything in order before I got to Aero, and I get to Aero and I'm still kind of putting it together. And they were like, well, the floor's yours, right? So you just got people staring at you. So you start going through it, and what happens is you continually get stopped every 2 seconds, and they're like, hold on. And then they'll ask you a question. What about this or this or that? And that's fine, but at some point in time, you got to be able to kind of write while I'm talking, right? You know what I mean? Like, this is a long story. I got briefing papers for you. So we actually ended up, it was well past 5 p.m. and it wasn't going to end. And overall, there was really just one guy I did not get along with in there. Oddly enough, he would be my main contact point from there on out, and me and him actually got along great. Kirkpatrick and I did not see eye to eye in there. But, the best way I can describe it was the old terminology where they talk about a couple guys, beating each other up, and somehow you become best friends after that, right? And that's kind of what it was. So we got into a pretty big argument with them, and that's isn't something I've really talked about a whole lot, which really had to do with, we would love to tell you that, but we don't work for you. Okay. You knew we were a company. We've been over all this before we came in on the phone call. We're looking for our deal, and we're not going to tell you that. We've told you everything we need, right? We gave you GPS coordinates and date timestamps. We're not going to tell you the whole shebang here. By the way, the defense budget's pushing $1 trillion. They're saying the next defense budget is going to be 1.5 trillion. And it's not like they don't have the money, right? People get contracts for this all the time. And usually it's contracts like, I've mentioned this a couple times. We pay 100-fold for, paper towel dispensers you could get at, at the store. Or one particular gentleman who's now in the UN, but he was a congressman, Waltz. Not the Waltz you guys are probably thinking of, but he held up a bag of bushings at a hearing with the Air Force and said, how much did you guys pay for these bushings? And they couldn't answer. And he said, you guys paid $90,000, I think is what it was for it. And he said, these bushings for the same standard and the same qualifications you can get at any hardware store for $20. So again, the idea that like we can just give all this out for free when we've spent all of our money and time for decades, it's not going to fly. So the one guy I didn't get along with actually was like, well, that's fine because we're going to call so-and-so and get the information anyway. So you really haven't done anything there. And I was like, man, SCIF's a 4-letter word. Let's put it that way, Dave. Like that's the sort of stuff we were going through. So, it was me and my father, and we stood up and we were like, well, you know what, guys? We gave you more than you needed. You've got everything. They were asking us, well, where's this at? And we were like, we left that with SSCI, that sample. It's in their Scif safe. You call them if you want, right? So we're like, well, we're going to head to the Irish pub, been here for eternity. And they were kind of like stunned by that because, at the beginning of this, when they give you the verbal, first you have to sign a paper, then you get in the Scif, and then you get a verbal when you got to agree to. We're like, at any point in time, you have the right to end the interview. So we were like, interview's over, right? And they were kind of stunned because I guess no one's ever entered the interview on them. So we were just like, well, So they were kind of looking at each other and confused, and they weren't really sure what to say. And we stood up to walk out, right? I stood up. My dad knew meant, all right, stand up. And they were like, okay, guys, hold on. They're, looking at each other. So they're like, you know what? You guys need to go to the bathroom before you need to leave. And we were like, yeah, because we actually do. This is a weird story, but if you've ever been in DC, especially after 5, there are no public bathrooms. There's just none, right? So you got to walk out there and keep in mind, just like this show we're doing here today, we're there for eternity. So we've all got to go to the bathroom. So I head down the hallway. 2 of the guys follow us. Kirkpatrick stays behind. I go into the bathroom, and one of the guys follows me in there. He's the guy that stands too close to you at the urinal next to you.
Oh, he's one of those guys.
Yeah, and he's talking to me, man, we got to get this going, and we got to agree to this. And what about, national security? all right, you guys don't want to give us that. That's fine. You gave us a bunch of other stuff, but what about the contacts? What about these countries and whatnot? So I come out, right. And then my dad goes in, and Kirkpatrick corners him in the bathroom. I won't say what was said, but anyway, it was testy. And finally we agree that we will work forward from the national security angle, which is we're going to turn over all these videos, contacts, phone numbers, these death threats that OSI verified all of, and go from that angle. And then actually our relationship after that first meeting started to get very, very well. I actually never had a problem. And this is going to sound weird, I liked Kirkpatrick. I liked the staff there. Not like as in great people, but we had the respect going from whatever happened at that meeting to where we could move forward. But if you don't like trial by fire, if you don't like high intensity and people who are trained on how to, break you, and Kirkpatrick said this before, right? Like he's an intelligence agent, then it's not the place for you if you crack under pressure.
One of the things that I'm trying to figure out here, and I don't quite understand, is why would they be riding your butts on this? I mean, you guys go in there to tell them just what you saw. Why the heck would they all of a sudden become, in this case, Sean Kirkpatrick, very volatile? It just doesn't seem like it's making sense. Almost like they're a parent scolding their children and for you telling what you saw.
Well, let me definitely make sure the record is straight here. And this is, for me, in this industry, the intelligence industry, you don't say other people's names or bring up a whole lot unless you want a battle with them, right? So when Tim Phillips brought me up, that was really out of left field because it's not what you do. And this is the most I've talked about Kirkpatrick here combined all together versus that. So I wouldn't say it's scold. What I would say is if you go in to do a briefing or debriefing, however you want to look at it, at the Pentagon, at people that work as essentially people that do that with usually some bad people, right? These are people that have probably had individuals from terrorist countries in front of them. This is the way it goes, right? When in Rome isn't always a good thing. It's just the way it goes. So I haven't heard of anyone, and you probably know as well, Dave, that ever went through it and was like, "Oh, I enjoyed that." I mean, nobody enjoyed talking to Arrow, and I think it was Herrera that said that when he was going on with his story, they kept stopping him saying, "Who are the guards?" And he would say, "I don't know," and they would stop him 5 seconds later, and be like, "Who were the guards?" So, like, if you go, this is the way it is.
Are they using it as intimidation factor to try and show that they're the ones with the upper hand and you need to answer them?
Oh yeah, but again, it's a weird answer, but it's normal. Like, one of the things when we first got there, right, outside the SCIFs, they were like, "Yeah, how'd you guys get over here?" And it was like, "What?" They're like, "Did you guys drive or they drop you off?" And it's like, man, what's that got to do with any of this? I saw the park and I don't need like a validation ticket or something. And they're like, and you could tell like they were probably looking out the window just to see who dropped you off. And we kind of got warned. They asked a hell of a lot of questions. Sorry about the language there, but and so it's like, okay, so and so dropped us off. Okay, well, who was it? And it's like, I don't know, man. Here's what the person looked like, and they're like, okay, were they have blonde hair? Yeah. Okay, it was so and so, and it's like, why do you guys need to know this amount of detail on just seemingly little tiny things? And that's the whole way it carries through, even worse in the SCIF. I don't have answers why, but just know for those that didn't go to Arrow was probably a good thing.
Would you have done that again? Would you have met with Arrow knowing that it would have been so controversial?
Well, because of what happened, mainly just the Tim Phillips part, right? Before that, I was getting, emails, and I think I've released some of those from Kirkpatrick, thanking me for stuff and asking me to work with OSI on different things. So, I mean, this is a weird answer, I know, but like, yeah, had it have turned into something, fine. But when I look back at it now, it was a mistake, not because I didn't want to go through it, but nothing came of it. Spent a lot of time, spent years, spent a lot of money providing things to them, and this is what the things you get for it. But as far as the intimidation and their methods in the Pentagon, yeah, that just doesn't really bother me. I'm not trying to come off sounding macho or something, but like I've been through a lot worse than that, right? As the old joke is, I used to hold the flashlight for my dad. You know, you're gonna have to come up some more than that.
At any time, and I don't know if you're allowed to answer this, but going into the second skiff, how was it different?
Well, again, you are in. It's kind of like being in a finished basement or an unfinished basement. I've been in some basements that were amazing. That's kind of what you get at SSCI. You get over at the secret location, you get the unfinished basement with like, you know, concrete walls and a damp smell sort of scene. So it's already a complete different thing. And then you get the heat turned up in that little oven on the staff. And so those were the ways that it was different. It was definitely not a friendly sort of welcoming environment. No one offered me a bottle of water. Let's put it that way.
Wow. They didn't even provide water in there.
They lock you in and that's it. And again, it's not that I suffer from a case of dry mouth. It's as you can imagine, you're getting asked and to do a briefing, continued, and they don't really let you bring your own stuff in there. So it's like, imagine talking for hours and hours and hours. You know, I don't know, was that like a torture technique? I got to ask for a water and a restroom break or something. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, if you're in there for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, and you're
Longer than
looking,
that, Dave. And it was talking the whole time.
oh my.
My hope was I could outweigh him on the bladder. I'm just going to be honest with you. Some of them were older than me, and I was like, all right, I can hold longer. Someone's got to give, you know?
Going into the second one, you mentioned the second one was a little bit more frank. Were there any politicians in there with you, or are you allowed to say?
Yeah, I could be allowed to say. So there's two different things here. You have SSCI, which is at the Hart Senate building in their SCIF. So also where their offices are, at least most of the people in SSCI has an office there. So they just walk through the floors and they go into the SCIF and you meet them there. Now, the other location, which is Arrows, is not at the Pentagon. So when you hear people talk about going to the Pentagon, that's not their SCIF. And their SCIF is at a secret location. You got to sign NDA. Can't talk about that. But that has nothing to do with politicians. Matter of fact, that is the complete opposite thing. Because, like I've kind of said before, these two groups were not apparently working together or friendly. And you're just dealing with the Pentagon. So nothing to do with politicians. The way the system is supposed to work is you go in and tell SSCI your story, and SSCI will tell you we have no way to chase any of this down. So, like if I go into SSCI and I tell them, hey, here's the address to a UFO, even though you say, well, they should go over there and show up and get it. Not how it works. What they do is have Arrow, and Arrow can only do it if you testify to them. They're not going to transfer that information to them. You kind of seen that with Gillibrand and Grush, where she's like, I've got to have them go to Arrow before I can, review them. So then Arrow's the ones that's supposed to kick down the doors, which you've seen them talk about. They got an address for something and they rushed over there and they couldn't find anything and they've toured this facility. And then Arrow comes back and briefs SSCI on what they found. So that's the system there. So again, politicians on one side, Pentagon people, Arrow on the other. Two different buildings.
What was the reaction from the politicians?
Well, keep in mind, I didn't speak about anything that I couldn't back up. And I purposely made sure that someone could leave the room and make a call and, verify stuff. I mean, that's important, right? When you're setting up a call. So I feel bad for the people that just had to go in and tell a story that they seen something. My story also did not involve, as Phillips has said, anything to do with alien. It obviously involved technology that defies physics in places it shouldn't be. What I will say is that as these meetings continued on for years, the politicians would crack and laugh jokes about aliens in the SCIF with me.
Really?
And I
They're not,
mean,
they're not very much taking it seriously.
Dave, like I said, always have a witness with you. But the sort of jokes about aliens at Area 51 and stuff, it was like just the sort of laughter. I don't mean chuckles. I mean, they would laugh and then they would start going on about, oh, here's a story someone told us about. And it's like, okay, guys, I don't know about any of that stuff, right? So, but yeah, people do not understand. You see it now, right? They're all about drones. The Senate does not care about your alien story. And a matter of fact, they're probably laughing you out of the room when you leave. And that's kind of why what happened, it did, where most of the people that saw something NHI or alien related ended up over at the House. And I'm getting called back for years at the Senate. And obviously their opinion kind of went to drones, but the Senate was not interested in all that, not one way or another.
Well, I think you're opening up a little can of worms here that we have never really heard before. And that is that when these politicians who were in there were asking you questions about aliens and UFOs and little green men and anal probes or whatever came up, that they were doing it in a snickering kind of way, like it was a big joke to them. And yet here they are in front of the camera with the Conspiracy Club by Anna Paulina Luna, and they are all claiming that they're taking this very seriously, that they got to get to the bottom of this.
Well, so for people, because it gets confusing, by the way, the U.S. government, all governments, but so you have the Senate and you have the House. You have senators or you have representatives, sometimes congressmen, congresswomen's the term they use, but senators different. And Luna even, I think, had to clear this up one day. She was like, by the way, I'm not a senator. I'm a representative. So the House, which is Luna and Burleson and those people, are taking all that serious. NHI, aliens and whatnot. The Senate, which is SSCI, they're the people that stood up Arrow. They're the people with all the power. They're the people that have everybody on speed dial, can send someone out to go call Hegseth right now if they wanted to. Those people were not interested in aliens whatsoever. And I think you've seen it again on Gillibrand, where that clip got put out on YouTube, and it's still there, where she's doing like a campaign rally, and so she gets asked a question about it, and she starts laughing, talking about Grush. She's like, and then he said alien biologics, and I'm like, what? And she starts laughing. But yeah, on camera, it's like, yes, I'm taking these people serious, and we're treating them with respect. The Senate, if you had any idea of the sort of jokes that were told in there, they're too dirty to tell on the radio, some of them, about the alien stuff and what's supposed to be happening. But it was a joke for them.
That's really sad to hear.
I mean, I'm not a believer in it. My problem is like somebody paid their own money. If people don't understand this, you have to pay your own money, your own time to get to DC. You have to come in and do a presentation. I get, as a politician, you start thinking this sort of, godly sort of way where everybody's trying to give you money or get your time. But it was pretty disrespectful to see that, like, that you're still allowing these people to come. Let me tell you a quick story here, Dave. It's only 2 minutes.
1 minute.
Okay.
We'll have to carry it over.
All right. So quick story is, I'm getting ready to go on the SCIF. This is later on with some senators, and one of the staff members says to me, hey man, dumb it down. And I was like, what do you mean dumb it down? He's like, dumb down the presentation. And I was like, how dumb, man? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And they're talking about this senator, and they're like, dumb it down like you're going to go in there and brief your grandpa. And I was like, okay, well, my grandpa was born in the 1910s. Like, he's 100 years old. Like, how old is the grandpa I'm supposed to be dumbing it down for? Like, my dad's a grandpa, pretty dang smart guy, right? And he said, yeah, Go in there and brief them just like you would your grandpa born in the 19 teens. It's like,
Oh my.
these are the people running the SSCI?
That's kind of scary. It's kind of scary indeed. Whistling Mike, we want you to stick around for the next hour if you're still feeling quite awake, because I think it'll be good. Let's do it then. Grantavius Max is going to join us as well on Spaced Out Radio. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott. All right, my friend, we got about 5.5 minutes. I'm going to put you in the green room and we'll be right back, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Be right back, everybody. Try and make the chair move. Do some of that voodoo. Let's bring the guys in. Whistling Mike, if you're there, hop on in. Grantavious Leg, how are you?
Doing good, my man. It's good seeing you.
You're looking pretty.
Hanging out.
Home Run King, Larry Bonds, welcome to the chat room tonight. Boondock, what's happening? Who else has jumped in here?
Grantavious Max, good to meet you.
Good meeting you, my man.
Grant's a little sore today. His leg gout is flaring up right now.
Well, it's kind of a cool look still you got going on. You framed it right, so.
Oh yeah. Well, I can't even leave the couch very well, so I'm just kicking it. A fort full of pillows and a leg up near. But the cast is green for St. Patty's Day. Let's go.
Oh, nice.
Oh, you got a new cast?
Oh, they finally put me in one today. That's the reason why I'm in pain. They got me at 90 degrees. And oh boy, that was something else. But,
Signs of Life, how you doing?
great.
And big thank you tonight to Benno, Trucker Andrew, Deboruni, Maggie, and Matthew for the super chats. We greatly appreciate your love and support, everybody. And want to remind everybody that you could join us for Caribou Con. Go to cariboucon.com, get your VIP tickets for now. And the event is September 18th through 20th. We're going to have a lot of great speakers, a lot of great plans for you, from ghost hunts to UFO sky watches to maybe even a Bigfoot adventure. So make sure you come on down. It's going to be a lot of fun. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store on our website. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out and get yourself dolled up in our gear today. We'd love it. And here we go in 3 seconds. We are into the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We're going to continue with Whistling Mike, and from UFO Max, Grant Baker has joined us from the UFO Report. We appreciate him tuning us in. But first, we want to say hello to all of you tuning us in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Callan is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Now, normally we go to Swamp Dweller at this time. We're going to jump on over that because we got a lot of UFO news to kind of get into with what it is like to be a whistleblower for UFOs and UAP. Whistling Mike is here with us. And Mike, thank you for sticking around for hour 3.
Hey, I'm ready to go. We doing an hour 4?
No, just 3 tonight. They
All
only
right,
allow me 3 hours on the radio.
Gotcha.
Mike, after you kind of sit back and you look at everything, and I'll be honest with you, during the break, I'm still a little bit blown away by these politicians who in front of the camera are saying that this is such a serious endeavor around national security, and we have to have safe airspaces around the country. And what is going on here? What are these UAPs going around? And yet behind the scenes in a SCIF, they're kind of a little snarky, a little laughter, a little bit not taking this seriously. I mean, I know I already asked you, I mean, were you kind of shocked by this? But when you look back and take it, I mean, what do you think of this whole disclosure movement when you see things like that?
Well, I think of how many mistakes are being made. And this kind of has to do with the community. I won't get into it too deep right now, but I've always said that the way that this should be done, and I'm not the one that has the power, to lead this charge, but I offered myself up for the House hearings, but I said I'll only do it if you are able to get me polygraphed. And I said, the reason for that is that every intelligence agency in the United States, that's mandatory. Doesn't matter if it's FBI, CIA, Border Patrol, and you can go in and be, the highest possible candidate there is. And if you fail the polygraph, you can't go to HR. It's just too bad. No job offer. Game over. Now you can say whatever you want about the polygraph, but that's how serious they take it. And if you want to beat somebody, people need to listen to this. If you want to beat somebody, you have to beat them at their own rules on their own home court. That's how you have to look at this. So I said, you can call me in after everybody's done. I'll sit at the table by myself, or you can polygraph people next to me. And I said, I don't care what their story is. If it's about aliens or alien biologists, whatever it is, if they pass the polygraph, I'll buy the first round, right? So that's how I wanted to go about it, because I talked to a lot of media, mainstream media, more of anything defense media. And they're also kind of laughing at the whole hearings and, congressman asking how tall is the lizard species of people. Now, if that's your thing, you believe it's true, that's fine. But if you want to take this serious, what you have to do is go through the same way that I went through with the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, get the attention, prove you're up to their standards, polygraphs, be able to provide information, not just a story. And as simple as that sounds, I see the exact opposite. It's really like, if you have a story or it involves aliens, the people with the power won't take you serious. So there's just so many problems. I could go on and on and on, but the House in Burleson, I've met Burleson both in DC as well as in Missouri. He was actually going to fly in to see me one day as well, and his plane wouldn't start. It was a funny story there. Oddly enough, a private plane his buddy had, but I just don't see a method forward unless you can go to the top, right? What do you have to do to win? Usually the saying is you got to go to wherever their leader is and take him down. And I just, as you can tell, I don't think we're headed that direction.
Do you think this disclosure movement is all a scam?
I think, well, first we have to say, what is the idea of disclosure? And so if you want to say there are other species and things like that, that's fine. But what you always have to come to with the U.S. government and the Invention Secrecy Act and the defense, industry is that if anything crashed here, if any other species has technology we've got and it's been used by the government or they want to use it by the government, you will never hear about it. It's not the alien species. It's they're going to protect their weapons and their technology. People have to understand that as you're formulating your plan. So what is your plan here? You have to work around that. And so when you go into the alien part, and I'll just be honest with you, and I haven't talked to everybody, and I'm not an experiencer, but I haven't seen anyone able to really give me information to where I say, oh, I believe in it either. Doesn't mean it's not, but that's the challenge you have if you've seen that. How do you capture something? So with that said, I think it is a scam, but I think most of the scam artists are on the side of the community saying we're trying to get disclosure. I think the call's coming from inside the house, Dave.
So do you think then with that, and I'll get Grant in here to ask some questions here momentarily. Do you think then that if this whole disclosure movement is a scam, is it just to try and create more budget? I mean, we see all of these companies popping up the last couple of years saying that they're going to bring the technology that can find these UAP. They're going to bring the new radar systems. They're going to make these sexy computers and guidance systems that can help detect these craft coming in or wherever they're from and locate them. We hear Ryan Graves, God bless him for being a veteran and a fighter pilot, for his safe aerospace group, where they think that the skies are unsafe because of these craft that are in the air. I mean, there's a lot of posturing going on through this, Mike.
Yeah, it really is. Too many bosses, not enough workers. That's the best way I can really describe this. Again, we are rooting people's stories on versus looking at strategic planning. In my way of going about things is strategic planning, right? Why are we the only ones that can prove what we proved? Why are we the only ones that Tim Phillips is saying, yeah, those guys confirm we have physical materials? And, why is this that I'm called back to the SCIF, the SSCI SCIF? And I'm not trying to, degrade or demote anyone's story, but what other whistleblower that went to SSCI got called back to that same SCIF requested several times over 2 years? So it's not me trying to brag about myself here, but what I'm saying is people have to understand there's a difference between a strategic plan and wanting your story to be verified. We may be able to get there, but you have to start somewhere. Right now, I would say the place to start, and we've seen this come about, is drones, right? You got to know what's in the sky, try and take that to UAP if they do exist. But this idea of like chasing down alien biologics or a craft that crashed that's so big it couldn't be moved, or the mummies thing, you're welcome to believe in it, but like, good gosh, guys, that's not a shortcut. It's not. It's jumping off the cliff is what it's really doing for us right now.
Grant, you got anything?
Yeah, it was so funny that you just said that at the very end there, Mike. I've been digging into those sites actually today and yesterday about the UFOs that are so big that they're building structures over them, and I put quite a few hours into that actually, just because I think it's fun. But you're kind of beating around the bush where when it says, hey, this is where we need to start, or everybody else is beating around the bush, not you, excuse me. The biggest thing is not Gallaudet. I'm sorry, Hegseth is now gaining access to all these other, sites like Lockheed Skunk Works and Northrop and all that. What is your idea on what's going to happen there? Is there anything going to come out of that, or is it just going to be another smoke and mirrors in your eyes?
I'll take Hegseth out of it for a minute, because whoever's the SecDef, it's the same thing. Doesn't matter the administration. And now with the way things work, it truly is like this. Your reign of whatever position you're put in. I'm not making this political, but we're going to have a new leader of Homeland Security. If I was him, I wouldn't have done it, because you're a senator. You've got a great seat in committees, and whoever comes in next, just because if it's not Republican, you're probably out. And then where do you go, right? You've kind of terminated your political career. So it's the same thing here, whether people like it or not. Follow what's happened to the previous Secretary of Defenses and other folks. They go work for a real big company, and instead of making 180 or whatever it is, 200 something, they make millions of dollars with stock offerings. And so by design, to think that any one of that would ever release this sort of details, I think is just absolute ridiculous. It's not how it works.
How does it work?
You keep secrets, and the secrets you keep and the knowledge you have and the friends that you make in this are rewarded later. You look at the SSCI, there's turnover there. Matter of fact, Rounds is on his third staff member since 2023. And he's a big dog there. Where do they all go? They all go get nominated for big top political positions, or they go and lead corporations. So again, you stay quiet, you spend your time there, you make your contacts, and you give them the deals, right? That's how it really works. And then when you get off there, they hire you and you make your money back. I mean, it's not a secret. I mean, you jump back and forth if you need to, back into the government, back into the private world. And again, you can jump on any site, any work site, any any Google search, and you have some pretty professional writers write about the problems in the defense industry, which is what we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with the secrets of alien lives. We're dealing with how do you fight the defense industry.
What's your message to other potential whistleblowers that haven't come out yet, or who are thinking of coming out?
I've actually had quite a few reach out to me, all unknowns at this point in time, to the public, and I've encouraged them not to come public. I mean, people may not like that, but there's no reason to go through the meat grinder of UFO Twitter. Like, why? That doesn't help your story, doesn't prove anything. Some podcaster makes a bunch of money off of you and prays around your story, and you go do another podcaster and get millions of views, and then you're on here saying you can't even find a job, and they're retaliating to you, and you have no security clearance. So yeah, you see that big black box over me? That's the way you do it. Keep your name off there. People don't even know if my real name's Mike, right? Good. Block yourself out. Do what you got to do if you're going to go and tell your story. Now that you've heard my story, if you're going to go and talk about alien biologics, and by the way, it could be true, okay? But you see what the Senate is. One of the things I said in one of the other podcasts I've done is that it's dead, and I think Burleson's plan is dead because he has to get the four corners. Four corners, one of those is Tom Cotton. And you can go back and listen to my podcast where I did it, where I said he hates UAP. I've talked to him. He hates the term. He hates the idea aliens. It's not even like he'll chuckle about it. It gets him mad. Like, all that nonsense sort of, get this out of here. And these were some of the changes that happened where everybody started having problems. And then you saw last one with Gillibrand where she says, oh, UAP means drone now. And Lazo was like, well, what's going on? She said, Cotton wanted the language changed. Like, I already called it. So if you have a story about that, you can't go to SSCI. You're wasting the plane ticket in the hotel. Your best place to go is Burleson in the UAP caucus. Granted, as he said, and I'll let him speak for himself. I mean, I like the guy. We don't agree on most stuff, but I like the guy. You got to give him something, right? People got to understand this. You can't just show up and say, I saw something. I can't remember what day it was, the summer of 82, over at such and such. They can't go back and pull the radar files. They don't have the power. They're not on the right committee. Those don't exist. You got to give the guy something to chase down. So if you can't do that, doesn't mean your story's not true, but there's no point to go through this public meat grinder to tell that story at a hearing. Don't do it. That's what I've told people, whether people are mad about that or not. Don't do it.
Is that just to save them the headache, or is that because of the process that you have to go through that's a little bit too complicated and convoluted? I mean, I guess maybe I'm looking at this way too simplistically, but I look at it like you're there to tell your story about what you saw. It shouldn't be being put through a meat grinder or being laughed at.
I think if you went in the beginning, granted, I think all those people have said it was a mistake now. It was fine to go and tell a story, but even the UAP caucus has been talking about we don't need another hearing with stories. And so what you run into, and this is kind of a summary of what we've talked about here today, is SSCI is going to laugh you out of there unless you have evidence. And, let's be honest, nobody does. Doesn't mean it's not true, but just, how are you going to have that? Are you going to hit him over the head and put him in a knapsack and bring him in, right? I mean, that's a hard thing to pull off. So then you got Arrow. What does Arrow do if you don't have proof? They start talking about basically how crazy you are, how you misidentified something, you're all loons, right? So then you do what I did. I'm the only person that spent my money and my time to take it further, to analyze the evidence and come up with this as a craft, right? Human-made U.S. craft. What happened to me? Tim Phillips comes out, accuses me of extortion, says that what he heard from the senator's staff, and it's all on the McWest podcast, and you can look at it, that he wouldn't feel safe to have me around his own family or anyone else's Imagine saying that against a United States citizen who has spent 2.5 years on his own dime coming there at your request and providing information. So whether you can prove any of this or not, somebody tell me what would be the point ever of going to DC as a whistleblower, and if you do, why would you go public? It's a lose-lose scenario. The only thing that saved my rear end is my technology. And I've released some of the papers. I think it's on the AMA, Reddit AMA I did. He did a real good write-up of it. Is some of the back and forth with Senator Round's office. And they say, Senator Round's is going to the Pentagon about what you have. He's really worried. We're going through the Invention Secrecy Act. They're promising us protection. If I didn't have that as leverage, these guys would have ran over me. But because they need it, because I still have USG funding people wanting me to get it done, want me to, okay, let's keep going on this. Let's find some other way to get this into our warfighters' hands, then you're screwed. What are you going to do? Your face is all over the place. You just told a big story. The Defense Department's going to make you look like a fool. You got no backing at the Senate. Where do you go from there? It'd be like going on a reality show on TV, making a fool of yourself, and then having to live with it your whole life. It's not the way to do it. And I wish I've spoke with people, including representatives in the House, to change their system and get rid of some of the people that are involved in this as far as podcasters, and they just won't do it.
Do you believe in UFOs?
So I have an interesting analysis of that, and the analysis is really fact and math based, not personal based. In a very stubborn way, I have to see something to believe it. And further than that, I have to, as Phillips has said, I have to get my hands on physical material and go through testing. I'm real stubborn on believing stuff. So one of the things you'll hear said, even from Kirkpatrick, was, of course there's life out there, right? There's got to be. The universe is too big. And he talks about statistically impossible to not be. However, if you talk to an actual statistician, there's actually people that go to school and do this for a living. There's two views of that. One is the glass is half full, which is what you've got this whole time, which is that if there's someone here in this planet on Earth like we are, with all these galaxies, there must be somebody. The other flip side of that, which is the current state, if you really talk to someone that does stats for a living and analyzes it, is based on what we know, there's no base on the dark side of the moon. The aliens aren't coming from Mars now, right? That we could very likely be the only civilization in our Milky Way, which then means not that there must be someone in another one. It means that there's probably nobody in all the other galaxies. It's more of instead of there must be, it's there can't be. It's too rare versus the other way around. So without getting tongue twisted on that, that's kind of my current view. Is it's like, because if they're that far away, it's pointless to think about it. That's the honest way I look at it. So, and I think even people in this space, you don't hear that anymore. You hear interdimensional bases underwater. The whole coming in from space thing has changed. The shape of the UFOs has changed. I think people are doing more damage to the story than they know that they are. So no, Dave. Let me recap that. Nope.
Sure. So you think it's all human technology?
I was having an interesting conversation with one of the guys I've made friends with on Twitter. There's not many of them, and he was talking about Vito. He was talking about supernatural stuff to me, and I was like, "Yeah, I believe there's something that happens when you pass away." And so we got talking on that. And he's like, "Well, then why are you so stubborn on the UFO stuff?" And I was like, "Again, man, it's not that I don't allow it to be possible. It's when you ask me, do I believe it? I've got to have quite a bit in my hands." And so that's the same thing on this, where it's like, could there be? Sure, but because of how long we've gone on, and I don't believe in the Roswell thing. I'm looking for some evidence. I've never seen one. The closest I can get is people who have seen things. John Kiriako's got an interesting story where he talks about seeing like shapes and trapezoid and colors, but not a craft that came down with green people and abducted people. That's where I have the problem with it. There's plenty of stuff we don't know. I just don't feel like it's probably.
Hold that thought. We're going to come back. We got Grantavius Max, Whistling Mike, and myself for the final half hour.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
This is flying on by.
It's amazing how fast it went. Don't ask me to whistle though. My mouth's too dry, Dave. Whistling Mike's just a name.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
And if anybody, I mean, it's your show, Dave, but if anybody wants to, bring some Kirkpatrick heat or ask questions or whatever, I'm open to whatever you want to do, Dave, right? We're all having a good conversation here. So
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Let me just see something.
I'm glad everybody in chat stayed with us, because I know after the second hour, people's eyes are starting to get droopy. So this is cool. And this is usually where I'm listening instead of talking, but Grant's listening to me, so that's all right.
Oh, we're good. We're good. I like it, actually. It gives me a different, field of view when I listen to other people, especially someone that has a little bit more knowledge on the inside of what really happens. And I'm an experiencer. I never, I've seen a lot of objects in the sky. We'll just put it that way. I don't know whether UFOs, if they were ours, theirs. Some of them were absolutely, fantastic looking, and some were just very plain. And my biggest story was, when I was 5, I actually had a gray face to face coming through my window with me. And I was just, that's where my story starts, even though I didn't realize or comprehend what it was at the time. It was much years later. So that's where I come out. And, I did want to say something where you were saying that you're more hands-on, and I'm a nuts and bolts guy as well. I have to have something in my hand. And I've seen a lot of really interesting stuff. But one of the biggest things that I've noticed when you started talking about like the space aspect, for the longest time, we don't have proof that they came from outside of our solar system or outside of our bubble, from 80,000 feet down. We know what happens in that small little space.
For sure.
And I used to give up, I tell a lot of people that would ask me this, and I'm like, what if they're not from Zeta Reticuli or whatever? What if instead of being extraterrestrials, they're interterrestrials, but a breakaway civilization that happened from one of the catastrophes that happened 25,000 years ago?
Yeah.
And they live underground or under the ocean or wherever, and of course then people are like, well, that's not as fun as an alien. It's not like ET. And I'm like, kind of,
Yeah.
It's just fun to hear other people's opinions and viewpoints on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A lot of people don't understand, like, I'm truly open to stuff. It's just I have to see things. There's a lot of people I know, even in my own family, but their story always starts out the same. As they're like, you're going to think I'm crazy, or I wouldn't believe it if I was you. And it's like, okay, man, but you just literally said what I'm thinking, where it's like, I can't believe it just because, and I've heard it from credible people, right? Like actual people where I'm like, boy, that guy's pretty legit. But it's like, that's different than having him have captured evidence and stuff. So when people get mad at me, and I'm like, the whole show I've said this, it may be true, that may be right, but I can't validate, these stories.
When it comes to somebody as high ranking as like Commander David Fravor, you've heard his story, correct?
Oh yeah.
Where does that put you? Because you have somebody that's, a high ranking military officer who is, the commander of a flight battalion, who's seen this crazy thing, and then all of a sudden we have the Go Fast, Gamble, and Tic Tac. And even though it's not something that I can touch that's tangible in my hands, but at the same time, I'm looking at that guy doing, that's a credible dude, and he's seeing this, and he wants to fly it.
Yep. Yep.
What did they see? Is that our stuff just messing with ourselves, or what the heck?
How long we got, Dave?
Got about a minute.
Okay, so I believe that the Tic Tac encounter completely happened. Video's legit. The Go Fast and Gimbal I have issues with. Not that it's not real, but I don't think they saw the same thing that the Tic Tac is. Those are different objects that were there. So David Fravor's statement is that it's not ours, and he would know. The guy's got an impressive resume. I mean, I've actually, pretty crazy stuff. So I'm not trying to belittle him. It's just comes into when you get into studying the stuff and actual facts and hands-on, which they didn't have, and you start getting things like data links, and they can go back and look. I'm not going to get into the story here because everybody can hear us, but the Tic Tac is definitely not otherworldly tech, and I'll just leave it at that.
I would agree with you. I didn't used to think that way, but I would agree with you now. Moving on, we have Trucker Andrew, Debaruni, Maggie, Matthew, and Benno for the super chats. Appreciate your love and support of SOR. And we're going to get going here in 2 seconds. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We have Whistling Mike still with us, and from UFO Max and the UFO Report, Grant Baker hanging on out. We appreciate them tuning us on in along with you. We're going to get right to questions here right off the bat, and a couple questions from our audience here for you, Mike. And Jeff is wondering, what is your thoughts on psionics?
Well, again, you have to be able, or I have to be able to really have a verification, and that anything with your mind, even when you just get into very standard stuff like the brain, we know so little about the brain. So now you're trying to say you can go out and call something in. And this could be my lack of intelligence, I don't even have an idea how that would work. It would be very hard to ever explain. So then it comes down to is if you can say what you're going to do and you can call it in, then you got it. But again, I haven't been out with anybody to do that. So it's like everything. I'm open to whatever. It's just I haven't been able to sit down with someone and go through it with myself. I will say that when we pitched a deal to a particular congressman that the government was going to fund our funding guy, we had agreed to include several of the big names in this space that use psionics in their mind and prayer. And I won't go any further than that. And I was like, whatever it is, we'll identify it. It won't be an orb anymore. Like that was one of my offers, but the congressman didn't go for it. So I have no validation of it. Could be true. Just don't know.
I'm a believer in it. I don't like the term psionics, but that's just me because I don't think
I don't either. You guys got to come up with a different name for it. Right off the bat, people look at that and they're like, this is that woo crazy. Some alien guys tell me this. It's not a good name.
I think my big thing with it, and maybe I'm a little bit too old school with everything, is I tend to believe that we don't need to change these names out of political UFO correctness. Okay, we didn't need to change UFO to UAP. We didn't need to change aliens or extraterrestrials to NHI. We didn't need to change summoning to or CE5 to psionics. And then that one particular group changing all the definitions of what a UFO is, to make themselves or give themselves a little bit, of an alleged higher standard. I think it's just bogus. I really do. It's like somebody writing the same song, but saying that they're going to stand on stage and sing it a little louder.
Yeah. It's like the acronym game where we have so many acronyms now. You don't even know what it means, this amount of letters. And now we have so many terms. Most people, if you say psionics, and be like, what is that? I don't even know what that means. I mean, I know it may sound cool and you've got different terms, but you got to let's simplify it.
Grant.
So I got a question for you. If Chris Bledsoe happened to get a hold of you and says, "Hey, come on out," because he claims that he, can do whatever it is that he does, and then prove to people that these things exist, where they actually come out of the woodwork, and some of them are fairly close, as far as I've seen him talk about. Would you be interested in doing something like that?
I'm gonna be careful on how I answer this, but I will say I have not talked to the Bledsoes, but uh without giving exact identities away, someone that's in real close who has a lot of power with the Bledsoes, I made that offer too, because we will have no problem, just like a UAP or an X-plane, having a crystal clear image and a data link of whatever it is. Now, the Bledsoes would have to accept. I don't like to put people on the spot, because I know some people have told me, he'll say like, "Oh, they're too shy. They don't want to come in. Or there's too much technology out. It's too shy." And it's like, I can run it down. I guarantee I can run it down. But I see a lot of problems there. But again, I have made offers to be funded by our own budget, where not only do we see what Chinese drones are flying around the states, we also go in and see exactly what these orbs are, and these on targets that are getting called in crystal clear imaging. The funding was there, but guess what? None of your politicians wanted to sign a paper. That's all it came down to. The funding guy said, "All we're waiting on is a signature." Couldn't be done. So if people want those answers, start telling people to sign some papers, put up or shut up. That's let's just be honest here.
Mike, I'm going to ask you maybe a little bit of a fun yet challenging question. You're not a woo guy. You're a science-based technologist. Why not, with this subject, dabble in the woo a little bit just to see where it goes? Is it just a matter that you don't want to, you don't believe to, or is it just something that you just don't have the time to do it?
We really looked at a lot of the big cases, right? Roswell, right? For me, something happened there. It wasn't a spaceship. It had to do with people aren't going to like it. A balloon that crashed and the government lying, and we were trying to target the same thing you saw with the spy balloons coming over on the jet waves. And that works for me. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I see that a lot better than some of the spaceship stories. So then you go to things like the Ariel case, and PS make people mad, but it's like, actually, that story has changed, and actually there's a lot of issues with it. It was not all kids in Zimbabwe. It was mainly white kids whose parents were there. A lot of people don't know this, but right before that happened, there was actually a rocket booster piece that came down and started a UFO craze, and there were pictures of UFOs in newspapers, and none of the people monitoring the kids seen it. It's not for us to spend the next 30 minutes on this. It's that I would love to find something. I really would. But when I look for something, it's just too much for me is not. Another thing I talk about a lot is material science and engineering. That was a big one that I briefed a lot of people on in the SCIF, where I had one particular person who led a department. I don't even say her name, but she sent in a little snippet for the senators, and it was like, "Do you want this to happen or that to happen?" And she sent in a video of a tea kettle floating. That's what can happen when you start messing with materials science and engineering and physics. Stuff gets weird. So that's an easier answer for me than someone from another planet has invented this and this is what's going on. So again, I'm open to it, but you got to give me something more, fellas. To the community, I mean.
What would it take? An experience?
Again, I'm all more than welcome, like the mind thing, because to me, when I hear that, it's like, well, it seems, I don't say simple, right? I mean, there's a process a person must have to go through, and I don't know what it does to you mentally, but like, if you really think you can get it narrowed down, where it's like, if I come up and you can get it to come in, and I don't mean, trust me, I know what every satellites are. I know what drones are. I'm going to bring equipment. And if I'd be like, my Lord, what is that? I can't, hey, I'm a believer, right? I'm always open to it. But again, offers we've made, I'm not going to point them out here or their names, but let's just say some of these people that claim a lot of stuff, when you start saying you're going to bring technology and they know you're darn good at what you do, all of a sudden they don't want to do it, or oh no, the orbs would then say, well, wouldn't like that, and it's like, give me a break, man, come on. So yeah, if someone's legit, let's do it.
Well, at least you're open-minded to it. I mean, that's better than not being. I mean, you could be, Mick West 2.0. And I'm saying that Mick's been on this show a couple of times, and I say that with all due respect, because everybody is allowed an opinion. We may not all agree, but everybody is allowed an opinion.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what Mick West's complete batting average is, but it's not 1,000. But I can tell you it's pretty close. And so when he gets things wrong, like I think the Nimitz video is completely legit, right? He doesn't. I guess I don't harp him as much as the people who are batting the opposite of that, right? You know what I mean? And there's a lot of those in the community. So I haven't talked to him other than that Tim Phillips interview he did. I haven't seen a whole lot of Mick West. It's kind of bad. I guess maybe you can get him back on. I can watch now that I'm watching the show and throw him some questions or something on here.
Where do you go from here? Where do you take this? Are you just one and done? You've said your story and that's it, or do you just continue back working, or is there more to this for you?
So my plan originally was to stay in the shadows, and that was everybody's plans, right? What did you hear? You heard Arrow is only in, interviewing people who are former military or defense contractor. There's a portal only. And now you guys find out, guess what? Not only is that not true, but we were asked back multiple times, and we were asked and thanked by Arrow and, asked to work with O. I mean, so you get an idea of what goes on in these shadows. But I've had to come out to fight allegations. I've had to come out. An intelligence agency asked me about this, and I said, hey man, I got to have a platform if they're going to take shots at me, right? So that's really what I'm doing. I'm staying public so that if I've got to fight off an allegation, but I'm still chasing the deal. I'm going to say too much here, but let's just say there are still meetings in Arlington, Capitol Hill, about 2 miles from Capitol Hill. We have a lot of people's ears. They have recognized us as experts. That's not me bragging. That's just what we've been through with SSCI and validation. And so we continue on. If I ever disappear, hopefully it's because we got our deal, right? Not someone finally took us out. But that's the same process. Another day, keep going.
No, and I can see that. What kind of meetings are you in now? Maybe that's a little too personal, but are you in meetings that are involving these subjects? Are you helping out around these subjects, or are you just doing your thing, and if somebody calls, you answer?
Definitely not that. I think people are frustrated because a lot of people have called me and they understand my point now, where it's like, okay, I know your company. I know you don't have a deal yet. A lot of even these intelligence agencies are like, this is the problem with this, is that there's no funding vehicle, when you get into money, color of, money that we can pay you. And it's, but we need your answers. And so it's posturing. I do help them with some questions they have. I want to stay on friendly terms. As long as you're decent to me, I'm decent back, right? These are the people that haven't come out with threats or something like that. Obviously, I don't react well to that, but there's different types of meetings. Right now, where I'm at, I am not attending. There's one that's coming up, a big one, where I'm going to have to go into the woo side, we'll say, and talk about things like angels and demons. But other than that, I'm dealing with things like, actually, we just talked about it on break for anyone that got the bonus footage, but we were talking about Fravor. One of the things that Fravor said was, this is definitely not human, and he would know because he's seen everything. Right now, in all of the military, that quote is like a known quote. So everybody right now is not so much sure that he's right, but they're like, we need to know what this is. Not aliens, not disclosure. How do we track it? How do we kill it? Right? I mean, this is military stuff, right? How do we bring it down? How do we reverse engineer? I mean, this is anything that has to do in the military. So they are hard up for getting what we have in our technology, and that's how we're working our deals. So the briefings do not cover NHI or orbs or this stuff. It covers all those subjects. What can you do for us? How can you do it within a military apparatus's goals about technology that certain people are saying is definitely not ours? You know, everything is stovepipe, so they don't even care if it is ours. That's great that, you know, one military branch has it and we don't, but we want it and they won't give it to us. So basically we have to pay you to get the information. We'll do that. I mean, it's such a weird system, but that's all people care about. We want it. World does. The whole world, adversaries and us.
Yeah, I can totally see where that is going, and I can see where you are, in a unique position where in some cases your expertise is definitely going to be needed regarding the technology side of everything. But on the flip side, you still have a business to run. You still have employees to make sure you're paying the bills and they're paying their bills. I mean, at some point, do you see yourself, Mike, just saying, okay, I've done enough with this. It's time for me to reconcentrate on my own business rather than play this UFO game? Or is it intriguing to you and getting more intriguing as we speak?
It's a more blunt answer, which is that, you know, poker table, I'm all in. I didn't come this far to just come this far. And I've told the intelligence agency and SSCI that I've got my life's work into it. I got my life savings into it. I'm not turning around going home. So just be aware of that, right? So, you know, that's the way it is. There's no change in pace right now. It is, I will see this through one way or another. What the end is, let's just hope it's a deal, because we're all better for it, including the U.S. military, and they know that. But we'll see. But yeah, so there's no end.
Well, pardon my ignorance on this, Mike. How is there no end if you've already given up your story?
Well, some people have asked me, is it better to tell everything and get top coverage? And I've said to them, no. What the key is here is leverage. So, for instance, photos like Burleson has seen and talked about and said he showed it to people to know, and it was jaw dropping. Having the ability to track these, having the ability to track a lot of X planes, which is stealth, you know, for people that don't know, you have several $billion into B2s per plane. That's pretty nasty when the guy on the other side of the table, being me, is sitting across from me and he knows that basically I can make all of your apparatus obsolete with my system. So yeah, they have my story. It's not so much important right now. It is they've got to get my technology. And when we talked to SSCI, they made it very clear. We do want to get you guys signed, and here's exactly what they said. And we want to shut you up, which is normal in this business. That's why you get the Invention Secrecy Act and NDAs.
So real quick, the technology you're speaking of, and one way to track these things is usually their power source. And is there any kind of apparatus or systems? Because we've heard of the dog whistle, whatever it is, that brings these things in psionically and stuff. But is if they have a different type of power source, like we have satellites that can look down and see hot spots of different types of, you know, whether it be nuclear, hydroelectric, whatever it is in your mind, is there a way where your system or there's a system out there that's able to detect these things by just like a power source signature, or am I going off the rails of that?
No, it's good thoughts. I can't give up the exact answers, but if the answers have to do with also why this is most likely human, where it likes to sit, and then you got the speed of when it's not sitting, how you can't pick it up, and what it would mix in when it's sitting and how it's sitting, you know, these hovering sort of things. And so there's a whole game, which again really leads you to why it sure looks like human tech when you get into, well, if they were just here, we could pick them up with the military radar, the U.S. radar, the weather radar, but they just happen to always sit at this 50 foot and the radars are turned up, that sort of stuff. So could you get it with the Golden Dome? Unfortunately, no, because you got to know what you're looking for. And although there are power sources, if you hide power source within an area that they're still, going to show the same colors, we'll just make it simple. You're really damn camoed from a satellite down to the ground 50 foot up. So there's a whole cat and mouse game going here.
Thank you so much.
No
What do
problem.
you think, with 2 minutes to go, looking at everything overall, what's the end game here, Mike? What are we missing as a public?
You're missing the idea of that it doesn't matter where it came from, whether it be ours or reverse engineered. It is here, and that part of the puzzle is hidden. And so whether we reverse engineered it or we created it ourselves. So really what you're looking for is the whole alien angle, and how can you separate that from the technology? And nobody wants to.
Which is why there is a difference between UAP and UFO.
Correct, sir. And if it's all right, Dave, I know I got just probably a minute here left. The question, because I appreciate her throwing that in there. I'm actually looking forward to Disclosure Day. I didn't think I would, but they're hitting on Kansas City, which is up the road from me. I'm going to watch it. I don't think it's the way Disclosure is going to come, but I don't get into possession and the supernatural part of it. But again, I'm looking at nuts and bolts stuff, not some of these other things people have seen, like both of you, where that's not the case.
I would fully agree. With about 1 minute to go here, just over a minute to go, Mike, I want to say a big thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here and open up to us a little bit and just kind of allow us an inside look of what you are dealing with as somebody who is on the inside. For our audience, how do they follow you? How can they learn more?
Funny thing there, I always tell people, I've got a black picture, blacked out picture. So if I show up, I show up, but I'm not really looking for attention or followers. But, every once in a while I bounce around like I am here. I am usually here every night. That's about the only place, Dave and Grant, and I'm usually in the chat room. Other than that, if I need to say something, I'll say it, but I'm in a little different scenario than most.
Well, we enjoy it when you are in our chat room. We enjoy it when you are hanging on out. And thank you for being a fan of Spaced Out Radio and also an incredible guest. It's been absolutely phenomenal.
Hey, I appreciate it. And if anyone ever can't make it again, that's always a good time to jump on and chat.
Well, you know what? We're going to take you up on that. We definitely are. And let all the other whistleblowers that you talk to know that, this is a safe place. This isn't a place where their narrative is going to be constructed to somebody else's narrative, so we would appreciate that too, my friend.
I will. You took the words out of my mouth, and just to repeat that, this is the way it should be done.
Thank you. As we say goodnight to Whistling Mike and Grantavius Max, and hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and Bigfoot Broadcasting Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. There we go.
Sweet, man.
All right. Radio side is done. YouTube side still up. That was sweetness tonight, man. Sweetness.
Goes fast, doesn't it?
That doesn't feel like 3 hours, Mike.
No, not anywhere close. But I appreciate the time nonetheless, because it still is 3 hours when you look at the clock, Dave Grant.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Well, I stay up half the night anyway, so I'm not really worried about it. Tonight, I'm actually going to go to sleep, though. I took the medication that they gave me before all this.
I was going to say some pain meds, yeah.
Yeah.
Sleep aid.
Oh, my God. They're horrible, though. They make me nauseous. And then I'm sitting here all in fog going, oh, man, I can't keep up with any of this right now. I mean, I definitely wanted to sit here and talk to you about, the different power sources that these things may or may not have and what you come up with yourself. And then, but my brain just gets too foggy on it at the moment.
You know what? We'll get back on here, and it's probably a good thing, because that would probably be a whole hour segment. It'll be interesting, but man, we'll have to really get talking on that one.
Well, I hate to, I mean, I know this sounds stupid, but Stargate, the original Stargate in the sand, the power source, and and of course I'm into ancient megalithic structures, and the piezoelectric granite that's inside the pyramids, and I just start going down these rabbit holes, and then I start finding somebody like you where I'm like, okay, I want to get a little bit more educated when it comes to stuff like this, and
it's a good talk. We'll kind of separate what appears to be in a lot of the questions from senators and the Pentagon, where it really seems to be, does it have radiation or not? And that seems to be the separating factor. Oddly enough, the non-radiation is the human tech. And then there's a gentleman I actually sent in to a congressman who actually had information, recordings of radiation spikes on actual scientific gear to do with his particular technologies developing. And that was the closest I've ever been to being like, ooh, somebody's finally got something here. Yeah. And we were trying to get funding because we were going to go out and we were going to capture what that was in high definition. That was part of it. We are going to do a complete red team, whether it was woo, fake, real, Jets, NHI, man, we were going to cover it all. We just couldn't get a signature, man.
I knew you were going to talk to.
That's awesome. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap this thing up. Tomorrow night on the show, we're going to go from reality today to the woo of our Keith Andrews tomorrow night. Oh, man, that's going to be fun. I love it when Keith is on. And we're going to say goodnight to Whistling Mike and to Grant. And I'm going to say goodnight to you. Thank you to our super chatters tonight. Benno, Shogun, Deborah Rooney, Trucker Andrew, Maggie, and Matthew. We appreciate it. I'm going to go edit the show, make sure it's all good. And you guys go have a great night. Let me know what you think of tonight's show. Please leave a comment in our comment section after the show. I want to know your opinion on whistleblowers, your opinion of Mike, your opinion of absolutely everything that's going on. I think we did exactly what we wanted tonight, and that was to get our eyes open. And thank you, Mike, for doing that. Greatly appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you. Thanks for everybody being here. I'll see you tomorrow on the chat.
For the rest of you, good night. We will see you in exactly 20 hours and 58 minutes.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.